OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTB AM this Wednesday morning. It's Ger and Eoin with you all the way through until 10 this morning. We've got a very special for you coming up. Classic game club between 9 and 10. We're looking back at Dublin against Kerry in Thurles. It was 20 years ago that Maurice Fitz kicked that unbelievable sideline. And there were plenty of other things in that game to get into that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But if you want to share any memories from that with us, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. If you've got any questions, we can cover them and talk about them on the Classic Game Club special edition coming to you this morning. Plenty more for us to get stuck into as well. We've even got Nathan Murphy out of bed at 7:30 in the morning. So I don't know what this is going to look like, but good morning to you.
How's it going?
Very good, yeah. You're on to talk about your team of the season, which is relatively controversial. We'll get to that in about 10 minutes' time. But last night, for people who are just waking up, it was a relatively eventful night, although it kind of went the way you would have expected it, in that Chelsea ended up winning 2-1 against Leicester, getting massive revenge for the cup final defeat. But what I thought was interesting was that there was a relatively long scrap at the end of it where it didn't die down after the first 5 or 6 seconds. Rudiger had been annoyed a little bit earlier on as well. There was a nice bite to that game. And then, I haven't seen this yet, but I saw the reports afterwards of there being a bit of craziness in the Man City game. I don't know how bad it got, but Pep, who is obviously on the sideline, animated and prickly and in the moment always kind of trying to pretend that he's the alpha dog and getting away with it most times. But Graham Potter was taking none of it, and there was a scrap there and Potter had to apologise afterwards. What's going on?
Well, the fans were back last night. Are they playing up to the fans? Are they showing how much they care now that there's 8,000 people back in the stadium? Or is there just a looseness at the end of the game end of the season where everyone's a bit tired and fatigued and cranky and just not going to take it anymore? I thought we were going to get a proper battle of the bridge. It was probably a level below what we saw between Chelsea and Spurs a couple of seasons ago. And the fact that nothing really happened, referee did nothing at the end of it, gave a substitute, Amarte, a yellow card. I thought we might see a couple of red cards because it did get fairly heated. There was a lot of pushing and shoving and hands to faces, and went on, as you say, for 3-4 minutes. Everybody was involved. The sideline was involved, and the referee took the easy option and just said, "Here, let's just get on with it." But it was getting heated throughout the match. You say Rudiger was central to it. Rudiger, by all accounts, is the alpha male in that Chelsea dressing room, and he was trying to show it on the pitch last night. And the Leicester players were starting to react. The game went in some ways as expected. The Leicester were flat after the cup final. Chelsea ripped them apart in the first half, but had goals disallowed. And then when Chelsea went 2-0 up, Leicester got one back. It did feel as though Chelsea got a little bit nervous. The tension rose. And I think it was the fact that suddenly there was 8,000 fans in the stadium making a lot of noise, that every challenge there was a reaction to. The crowd would react, suddenly the player would react, and it kind of escalated from there. And looking back at the highlights of the City game then, there was some terrible tackles in that. Cancelo was sent off for, that was just a Brighton player being clear through in goal. But Johan Bakash in the first half had an absolute shocker on Ilkay Gundogan. I don't know how it wasn't a red card, up above his knee, straight through him. And that seemed to be the temperature that game was played in, that there was a lot going on. And City and their players, much like Chelsea, are thinking about a Champions League final as well. This is not a time 10 days out that you want to be picking up a serious injury.
It's not. I mean, it's not a bad time to be picking up a league suspension, though. It means like, oh, look, I'm unavailable for selection. Sorry about that, but I'll definitely be fully fit for the Champions League final when you need me, Gov.
Well, I was more looking at it from a Leicester point of view, where their players had completely lost control in the last few minutes and had a few already on yellow cards. And you're thinking, you're playing Spurs at the weekend to qualify for the Champions League. What are you doing? You're going to get sent off and suspended for it. So heads were gone at that stage. I'm not sure how much they were thinking about it. But these sort of mini scraps, you always just want someone to properly thump somebody. You want it to really escalate. When you're standing well away from it, you don't want anyone to get seriously injured or grievous bodily harm or anything like that. But it's always the pushing and shoving and the little hand into the face.
I thought there was lots of little interesting subplots. It was there was some Leicester on Leicester action in the middle of it as well. I was like, I had to rewind it and go, hang on a second, that's one of the Leicester players and their kick given out to one of the Leicester players with the Parry match coats on. There's obviously a lot of people in that dressing room who feel confident enough to give it to each other, which in some ways is very good. Is this a good thing, Brendan Rodgers? Like, is this where Leicester are at the moment? They're not quite ready to be in the Champions League next season. You know, I mean, ultimately, Leicester, for all of Ian Stringer's bravado yesterday on the show, which was brilliant to watch, and they should feel confident about life, they're not really a Champions League team just yet.
Not when you look at the other teams they're competing with, because Chelsea are in a Champions League final. Liverpool won the Champions League 2 years ago, and you would expect both of them, if they qualify for next season, would get into the knockout stages. Leicester, the opportunity is if they qualify, what they can add to the squad. Can they keep everybody that is there right now? Can you keep Fofana? Can you keep Ndidi and Tielemans in midfield? Harvey Barnes and James Maddison, and then add in 3 or 4. There's speculation this morning in the papers again about Hudson Edouard coming in from Celtic, about Samora coming in from Lille. These are players that will really add to Leicester. And we say they're not ready, but they should have finished in the top 4 last season and blew it right at the end. This is different because the Cup means they look at the season in a completely different way. But I think they're ready to try and kick on to that next level and be a consistent top 4 team. But you've got to actually do it, and you've got to get the money that comes from being in the Champions League to do it. So if they're not there, can they keep all of those players? Can they keep progressing next season? It's going to be a tough summer for them. And right now, well, it's all in the hands of Liverpool, really. I still, despite Alisson's goal at the weekend, would you put your house on Liverpool winning their last 2 games against the Burnley side, who've already beaten them this season? And with Chris Wood in the form of his life, who is going to cause absolute havoc tonight against Reece Williams and Nat Phillips. And then Palace, who they humiliated last time out at Selhurst Park, in Roy Hodgson's final game in charge at Anfield, with something to play for, to send them off in the right way. I think there's lots of nervous moments coming from Liverpool.
The situation last night, though, there's only so much that you can put down to Leicester not being ready for Champions League or Brendan Rodgers or his team selection. It comes down to Jose Perez putting the ball in the back of the net, and they would have been in the Champions League. Like, I'm not sure how you can actually make a case that Leicester aren't ready for the Champions League. Like, they won the FA Cup on merit. They've kind of been there or thereabouts all season long. Maybe last season there was a feel of sort of new boys trying to regenerate after 2016, kind of a new team, a few new signings, and there was a bit of a bounce maybe. But this season there was nothing fluky about this, and I think Leicester City will be absolutely raging if they're not in the Champions League next season. Yeah, the FA Cup is great, but they wanted the FA Cup and to qualify for the Champions League if they really feel that they deserve to be in the top 4 or in and around there at least.
Oh, shocker of a miss as well. Like, the final minute of the game, you're 12 yards out and you just lean back. And maybe a Jose Perez shows why they're not quite at that level yet, because he's not really at the level of a Champions League player. He's done well, but when you look through that team, they've probably got 8-9 players of absolute outstanding quality, and 1 or 2 who, if there's injuries, are just slipping in there. And Perez is one of them. He's a nice player, but is he going to make an impact in every game? And is he going to do the business at the biggest possible moment? Like, you have Iheanacho and you have Vardy on the pitch. You want it to fall to one of them with the form that Iheanacho in particular is in right now. And for Perez to miss that, like, if they do miss out, that's the moment you're looking back on.
Yeah, that's 150 million quid miss right there. And that is the narrowness at the end of so perhaps the narrative from some people, particularly around these parts, will be that Leicester have blown it again and that their manager has blown it again. But ultimately, you know, they're very, very close. They're the width of cigarette paper away from being a top 4 team. I actually think that this was their chance, because I can't see next season Liverpool having the difficulties they have, Chelsea having a slow start to the season, and then you've got Man United who are going to strengthen, and you've got Man City, and after that they'll be the 5th best team perhaps, but maybe Spurs get better, I don't know. But like that,
but is that underestimating the job that Brendan Rodgers has done? Because it's 2 years in a row he has put them right there in the mix.
I think Brendan Rodgers is a brilliant manager, and I really want to see him managing at a club where there is no expectation to sell your best players, where you don't have to sell Chilwell, where you could actually just layer on all the extra players, where you don't have to sell Harry Maguire. So if he didn't have to sell all his best players and still had the investment, what would that look like? I think that Rodgers is ready for a super club again. And I think that his comeback from what happened at Liverpool has been one of the best stories in English football over the last 10 years. It's like, go away, lick your wounds, learn, come back much stronger, and the football that he plays is also really good. So which of the super clubs could he not manage at? The answer is I think he could actually take any of those gigs at this stage. And who knows? Maybe the Chelsea one is actually the one that comes up the most often, and Tuchel is only going to be there for 18 months and he rides it out until that, and that's a homecoming of sorts, and it makes the most sense. I don't know. Tuchel could be there for 5 years. Like, that's the thing.
I doubt it.
I mean, I doubt it too, but he could be. If he wins that game in, obviously Roberto Di Matteo gets sacked, but Di Matteo is no good. Like,
no matter what you say, there's an example of a Chelsea manager achieving it, yet getting sacked within a year. You're right, though. Like, he has history, obviously, with Chelsea and been there as a coach. And I did half wonder when the game finished, and I thought, yes, it's probably going to kick off when the full-time whistle goes. But Brendan Rodgers had this peculiar smile on his face of, wasn't that entertaining? That was a good game to be involved in, Thomas Tuchel. And also, do I really want to be starting up against this club that maybe in a year's time, 18 months' time, a big opportunity may present itself?
Maybe, and maybe that's the thing to do. It really felt like this was the opportunity for Leicester this season because of everything. Fans back next season. maybe you would expect Leicester to be a real fortress next year, and you would expect them to continue to invest, and by all accounts, the amount of money that the owners have, it's not really going to be an issue to increase again the funding, but I don't know. Let's wait and see exactly what the crack is with that. I just want to briefly talk about Harry Kane, because we've spoken about this before, and it keeps coming up. Everybody's assuming that this is going to happen, that it's almost a done deal, but I still, I'm a doubting Thomas. I need to put my hand in the fleshy wound to actually believe that he is signed for somebody else until he signs for somebody else, because that's what Daniel Levy does. I mean, we've seen him absolutely hold out to the very last minute, and sometimes those transfers don't go through. This could be a horrible saga that runs all the way until midnight on September the 2nd, or whenever the deadline actually is.
English football is littered with big stars who are definitely going to leave, who've said they want to leave. Think back to Steven Gerrard, and there's no doubt he's going to Chelsea, and things happen in the background and he ends up at Liverpool for the rest of his career. Likewise, there were times with Wayne Rooney and you thought it's over for him in Manchester United. The fact that Kane, and there's so much news coming from his camp, suggests that he wants to go, but also, who is the next Spurs manager? Does somebody come in? Does Daniel Levy make an appointment that catches everybody's eye and catches Harry Kane's eye, and again somehow he can think, maybe this is the opportunity I can stay and finally win something and get that statue outside the stadium, which is basically the decision he has to make. The benefits of staying are, you are Spurs, arguably the greatest ever player if you stay for the next 4 or 5 years, and you probably end up as the Premier League's all-time leading scorer. If you go to Manchester City, is that as likely? I know you're going to say, well, you're playing at City, you're going to score 30 goals every season, but you might score 30 goals next season, and then they might sign somebody else the following summer, and you might suddenly score 20, and next thing you're playing half the games and you're scoring 12, and you have a nervous wait at 240 goals, and you mightn't quite get there, and you've absolutely tarnished your legacy at Spurs. I'm with you, Jar. I wouldn't be surprised at all if suddenly news came out of the blue one day that he has agreed to stay, or that Spurs just demand so much money that even City, Chelsea decide we can't do this. Like, we can sign Erling Haaland for what we can sign Harry Kane for.
Yeah,
that is the problem. Like, what does Kane go for? Like, anything less than, even in the current market, 120, 130 million. Are Spurs going to let him go for any less than that?
Unlikely, because you can't replace him. That's the problem. There's no obvious replacement that they can just pick up on the cheap who will replace him and allow them to restructure the team the way whoever is making those football decisions requires them to do. The contract that he has at the moment is the big thing. He's got 3 years left in that, and it also underpays him. I can't understand why they did that long-term deal which didn't pay him the same market value as everybody else. So maybe there's something in that. Maybe there's something that we don't know about. Maybe the gentleman's agreement is a real thing, and maybe it's written down in the contract. Who knows? Maybe there is a secret buyout clause that we're not privy to, and that's the thing that has allowed him to take less than market value in recent years. Like, the list of the top 10 paid footballers in the world included, I think, was it Oscar, who's out in China, and Alexis Sanchez was getting paid more than Harry Kane over the last couple of years. And you're like, somebody did not advise Harry Kane very well, because he could have just pointed at Alexis Sanchez and gone, who's more important here in this, in world football at the moment, who's more important? And Spurs, if you're building a new stadium, you need to pay me. So I don't know if that might have prevented him from wanting to leave, if he saw himself always in the top 5, top 10 paid players in the world, that might have been like okay, this team, they need me, and I'm responsible for them. So look, we can come back to that very quickly though. The odds at the moment, Simone Inzaghi is the favourite according to Odds Checker to be the next Spurs boss. After that, it's Graham Potter, and then it's Brendan Rodgers, who's apparently already turned down the gig, Roberto Martinez, Hansi Flick, and then you get into much longer odds after that. Does any of this make any sense?
Like Graham Potter from Brighton to Spurs, like it seems like an easy one to put in the betting because Brighton play an attractive style of football, and isn't that the Spurs way above all else? Like Rodgers, if he's turned it down, you can understand why he's down the list, but you would have Rodgers miles ahead of Potter right now. And Inzaghi, has been in Italy for all his managerial career so far, and there's obviously something there that links it. But you're looking around and trying to think who are the obvious names that Spurs go to right now. Like there aren't too many standout candidates who are free, unless you're going after somebody like. Go after an Allegri. Would he be tempted by the Premier League right now? I know he's been linked with the Real Madrid job. I think Spurs are in a difficult position because it does feel like it's a summer where actually there's not a lot of big names out there.
Maybe you wait until after the Euros to see who decides that they've had enough of European football and you move on. I don't know.
Are there good managers at international level? Not many.
I mean, does Didier Deschamps win a World Cup, win a Euros and decide, right, I want to go and do some club football? I mean, he wasn't an amazing club football manager, but would he be good enough for Spurs?
I think if he's gone into it off the back of, as you say, a World Cup and then a European Championship, maybe they're absolutely delighted to get him. And it's a bit of a coup for them. But yeah, there's been moments over the last couple of years where it feels as though there's been a lot of managers waiting and looking for jobs, and this is one of those moments.
Right.
Would they just not have been better? Forget the financial aspect here. Would they have been better just having Jose Mourinho as their manager right now, holding out for a little bit longer, finding a replacement, and then sacking him? I know there was a financial element apparently, but would that have been a better footballing decision, even in the benefit of hindsight?
The season was over. What is right? I know they had the cup final.
I mean, maybe they won the cup final. Surprise. Who knows? I don't know.
Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. It's
it would have been good to find out, wouldn't it?
The cup final. In hindsight, yes. Like, Ryan Mason's done all right. He's brought Dele Alli back into the fold. Seems to be starting to play some decent football again. So, I don't think Mourinho would have. They were going to finish somewhere between 6th and 8th or 9th under Mourinho. That's probably where they'll finish, anyways. Yeah,
the fact that he got the Roma gig, I presume, gets them off the hook for paying a lot of compensation. That's the other thing. So maybe they knew, maybe Roma had, I don't know. All the politics of that, the speed with which he got the Roma gig makes everybody kind of think, well, that's very interesting. Anyway, it's 7:48 this morning. Wayne on YouTube says, in 2024, we won't have this excitement because Liverpool will qualify because of their history in the competition. Is that correct, lads? It is correct, is it?
Well, it'll be expanded teams. Like Leicester City can still bottle qualifying for the Champions League. We can still...
But Alisson wouldn't need to go up for the header because they'd be like, well, that's a big deal. We've qualified already, right? If they finish 10th.
Basically, yeah.
They are on about changing that again, though, as sort of a punishment for the breakaway clubs.
They're on about it. Come back to me when they do it. But as it stands, having got the new competition rules through, Liverpool would be automatic qualifiers, essentially.
It depends what other clubs also miss out on the top four. So I don't think if you had Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City, Real Madrid all finishing outside top four, which let's be honest, probably never going to happen, that all of them get in. There's a small amount of places for those legacy clubs.
European coefficient comes into it. The individual club's European coefficient, or whatever the equivalent of that is, right?
Okay. Yeah, so...
Okay.
But I still think we'll have some sort of late drama.
OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Give me the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock this morning. The Premier League team of the season. We're going to get into that straight away. Our Euros cheat sheet. What's this, Eoin?
We are giving you everything you need to bluff your way through every single team of the Euros over 12 mornings here on OTB AM. So we're doing half of Group A this morning. Turkey and Italy are up.
Okay, Turkey and Italy. And then we're going to talk about the PGA. The second major of the year. It seems a bit weird to be saying that about the PGA still. I'm going to think that for the rest of my life, but sure, look. So the PGA is this week's Virtual Insanity with John Duggan. We'll talk about that. We'll also bring you through the rest of the day's sports news. Obviously, Liverpool-Burnley, big thing tonight. Aishling Sheridan is going to join us to talk about her adventures down under and the return of the Football League this weekend. Classic Game Club We're going to be joined by Tommy for that one, because in the year 2001, Kerry and Dublin played in Thurles. The Dublin fans have travelled such a long way, was one of the commentary lines in it. I was like, they went all the way to Thurles. It's like an hour and a half on the train. Wow, what an adventure that was. And was it full? I don't even know if it was full. I'm not sure. The replay wasn't full.
Well, it can't have been, because half the Dublin people didn't even make it, because they either couldn't find a stadium or they just gave up in Kildare. They were like, wow, what is this County Kildare? God, what's that, the Nace Ball? I can't go any further than this.
I don't know if the Nace Ball...
Probably not.
It might
Is that posted as an amount? Maybe that was like the signature for the halfway point between Dublin and Thurles. Maybe that's the point of the
I think it's from the 90s, actually. I think, sorry, it probably did exist. But I mean, I think in the aftermath of the game, I watched the post-match reaction from the second game, and Paudie's given out. Did Tomas get sent off in the replay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Paudie's given out about the refereeing, and also saying there's only 20,000 at a replay between Dublin and Kerry. Something's wrong. I'm like, what? That's mad. Like... What? Was it? It wasn't the day that you two were playing or anything. Like, it wasn't like, I don't know, what could possibly have stopped people from going to that replay?
That could have been. Because Jason McAteer's goal, but that was
September.
The start. Yeah, this was, the replay was the 2nd of September, so maybe it was actually.
Oh, right.
You could be onto something there, actually.
Let's look it up. And the replay couldn't have been the 2nd of September.
No.
It was...
Well, no, sorry, what am I talking about?
Sure, it was the quarterfinals.
Sorry, the semi-final was on in the 2nd of September.
Okay, all right. Nathan, your team of the year.
Yes, much thought has been put into this.
What fresh disgrace do you have for us this year?
This was one of the more difficult teams of the year, because there's been no great team. There's been a lot of inconsistency, and also we've watched so much football.
Well, Man City, record-breaking run of victories. There's been no great team. They're a great team. We take them for granted now, but they're a great team.
I think they're a very good team. I don't think they're as good as the City team that won the Premier League 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, where they probably played the best football we've ever seen in the Premier League. So I don't think they're quite at that level. They went on a brilliant run at just the right time when everyone else was incredibly inconsistent, and killed them off. Also, because we've seen so much football, quite often when you're picking the team of the season, you've watched the Big Six week in, week out, and you might commentate in Burnley 3 times a season and watch them 4 or 5 other times for a full 90. Whereas now, I feel like I've seen 38 Burnley games or 36 Burnley games so far this season. So there's nothing about Ashley Westwood and Josh Brownhill and Matt Loughton that I haven't seen. And suddenly I feel like these guys deserve a chance for a team of the season. But unfortunately, the 3 lads haven't made it this time.
When Christopher Moltisanti gets shot in The Sopranos and he wakes up and says, I was in hell. It was St. Paddy's Day every day, and I was in an Irish bar. For Nathan, the equivalent is, it's hell. I've had to watch 38 games of Burnley this season.
I think that's a pretty pleasant experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it's going to be strange next season going back to a regular TV schedule.
No, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. We're going to appreciate football all the more for the fact that it's a tiny little bit more rationed than it is now, but not that much more rationed.
But you can't just not watch it. You could also just get a life once we're allowed to get a life again, and just not watch the multitude of different match days that are on our TVs. That is an avenue.
I've taken the sensible decision during this pandemic to not do that, Owen, not have a life, not be out and about like the young people, and sit in and watch the football. Anyways, Gerald, just to keep you on side, starting in goal, Emiliano Martinez.
What a signing. What a transformative signing. Basically turned Villa from perennial relegation strugglers into a team who was safe by midway point of the season.
Yeah, last season they conceded 67 goals, looked with 3-4 games left like they were going down, and like a team and squad that deserved to go down, that didn't have enough Premier League quality. They signed really well during the summer, but Martinez was the key. 15 clean sheets already, and just made everybody look rock solid at the back. And now you look at that Villa defence with Cash and Target at full back and Konza and Mings in the centre and think, that is top half of the table Premier League defence, all of whom teams could come looking at. So I think Martinez deserves to be there. Edison is the best keeper in the Premier League. This is the difficulty of picking team of the season. Edison had a very quiet season though, because City were just so solid in front of him. I think Illan Meslier at Leeds is going to be brilliant. He's 21. He is a proper modern goalkeeper playing in a team that like to get it out quickly from the back. And obviously Edouard Mendy had a big impact at Chelsea as well. But Martinez for 15 clean sheets at a team last season who couldn't and had all sorts of issues in goal. You think back to Pepe Reina was playing in goal last season.
I was going to say, basically they had Brad Friedel. The ghost of Brad Friedel still playing last season.
God, I forgot about that. What is like? I mean, yeah, this is like you're after. Like, it's very, very hard to make a case against him. But like, how close do you come to saying Ederson or Mendy might get in there? Like, because 15 clean sheets for Villa is worth way more than what was it, 16, 17 maybe that Ederson had come the end, maybe 18.
Yeah, Ederson wins the Golden Glove Award, but like that is, and there'll be places during this where you go, well, he is a better footballer than him, but actually, has this person had the season of their life? Have they transformed what their team is trying to do? Which I think you say, would City win the league without Ederson? Maybe, maybe not, but there's no way the Villa would have had the improvement they've had this season without Martinez coming through. And I know, Owen, you're one of those bitter Arsenal fans who said, well, we didn't want him anyways. That Bert Leno's a far, far stronger goalkeeper than Emiliano Martinez. But Bert Leno didn't make the shortlist, though.
Well, like, I mean, as you say, there are better goalkeepers who aren't going to make it, and I'm fine. I think the bitterness is that Leno is also going to be gone, so they're left with nothing. And they could have just backed Emi last year and everything will be fine and they'd be qualifying.
Leno leaving.
There's strong talk of it, yes. So, Martinez is a banker as far as I'm concerned. So that's a good start. Your back four.
1 second. Martinez gets super bonus points for wearing short sleeves as a goalkeeper. I'm like that. You get super, absolutely amazing. Leno also wears it, but like, whatever.
I think there's going to be controversy in your back four, Nathan.
Okay, my back four is right back, Luke Ayling of Leeds, left back, Luke Shaw of Manchester United, and Ruben Diaz and John Stones at centre back.
Wow.
I could have put 3 or 4 Leeds players in this team. I was trying to find ways to put Leeds players in this team because they've been the best thing about the Premier League for large parts of this season. They've actually been the best thing about every game being on TV because though they're a big club, we may not have got to see all the brilliant Leeds days. Even last weekend against Burnley, sitting down for that second half was as good a 45 minutes of football as you see a team play. The energy, the enthusiasm, the fact they just go all out all of the time and have been able to do it all throughout the season. You could have had Ayling, Dallas, Harrison, Bamford, Rafinha would have all been contenders. Calvin Phillips, they've just been absolutely outstanding. And I think Ayling deserves to be in. He started every game. He's played pretty much every minute. And that lead style demands so much out of every player. His energy levels never dipped. Even watching him at the weekend, he is the one when quite often when they all bomb forward, even in the 85th minute, who's having to desperately chase back if they lose the ball and make that last gasp tackle. I think he's made more tackles than anyone else in the Premier League. And while there's a lot of contenders and there's a lot of young, exciting players, like Reece James, Tariq Lamptey was brilliant until he got injured at Brighton. I think Wan-Bissaka's had an excellent season, been rock solid for Manchester United. Vladimir Soufal at West Ham has excelled in their run. Trent Alexander-Arnold, kind of like Ederson, I think is probably the best right back in the Premier League. But Liverpool's dip and collapse makes it very difficult, I think, to pick any of those Liverpool players.
Well, Trent had a couple of bad months where he was really bad.
He did, and
that one game he gave the ball away 39 times.
Well, yeah, but you can look at that stat, but also there's plenty of stats from last season where he also gave the ball away an awful lot in games, and it didn't matter because the rest of the team were so good. He takes a lot of risks in his play. But yeah, I think he was having to play in a very different way in that spell because Liverpool were on the back foot, whereas he is clearly at his very best when he's on the front foot. And what he's done over the last few weeks where he's basically taken Liverpool by the scruff of the neck, it feels, and says, I'm going to be the one who drives you forward. Taken on at times a sort of João Cancelo position, who probably at Christmas I would have felt, is nailed on for this. The more the season's gone on, I look at Cancelo and go, he's good, he's very good. But maybe the most interesting thing about Cancelo was actually what Pep Guardiola was using him for in that right back / central midfield role. So I'm very happy with having Luke Ayling in this team.
But like that's exactly it though, isn't it? That Cancelo had been used in a way that we hadn't seen too often from the right back's perspective. He was used in a way that got the best out of this Pep Guardiola system. He was used in a way that got Manchester City on that incredible winning run. I would 100% have him in there ahead of Ayling. I would have Kyle Walker in there ahead of Ayling. No question about it. I'd have Wan-Bissaka in there. Like you pointed out 7 or 8 Leeds players who've had excellent seasons, and it's great that they're being included in the team of the season. But is it not a little bit of tokenism? Like they're going to finish 8th in the Premier League this season. The quality has been spread around the team. It's not like there's been one outstanding player that you can pick, with the exception maybe of Bamford's goal scoring this season. That I'm just not sure how you can make a case that Ayling has actually had a better season than Cancelo, Walker or Wan-Bissaka.
Well, I think like Emi Martinez, like Luke Ayling, like an awful lot of these Leeds players, has come up through the league, spent a lot of time in League One, in the Championship, and there were huge questions about these Leeds players as to how they would step up. And Ayling has proven himself to be as good as any right back in the Premier League this season. The way he contributes to the way Leeds play, he is an absolute key cog in that side. And every time you watch him, he rarely, if ever, makes a mistake. And I just think he's brilliant to watch. I think he contributes at both ends of the pitch. He's probably doesn't have many assists, but he is the one who gets the ball into the right places at the right time. And yeah, Cancelo was the most interesting player of the season for a long part of it because of what Pep Guardiola asked him to do. But I think Ayling has made such a massive impact that I would have him ahead of Cancelo.
So he's the most improved player. It's kind of what I'm
if that was an award, he would
like
certainly
what you base it on. Like rather than him being better than all, it's like wow, Luke Ayling's really shocked me with his performance this season, and Leeds have been so good. Like it seems that the jump that they've made is the main reason for this, rather than the fact that he's actually necessarily had a better season as a right back than his competitors.
But if that's the case, your team of the season will literally just be the top two in the table.
Not necessarily. Like, we'll get into a few later on. Like, I think that one of your Manchester City players later on could definitely be replaced with a player who's playing for a team currently in 11th. And we'll get to that later on. Absolutely not. I think that there's a way of distilling this down a little bit differently. Like, Ayling's had a really good season. He's definitely the defender. Well, maybe Dallas, if you call him a defender slash midfielder.
Well, Dallas not a defender. Dallas played in midfield. Just because he's a defender in fantasy football, if you're watching the games, Owen, you'll have noticed he plays in midfield.
Oh! Says Nate, who picked, Emi Martinez, who is the fantasy football king in his.
Well, and I tried not to let that influence my decisions in this because I had some real bitterness around some of it.
Don't worry, I've got Dallas down here as a midfielder in the question marks that are seriously to be asked around your midfield, which we'll get to in a moment. But I just don't understand personally how Ayling, you can actually say, is the best right back. If you're taking it in isolation, it's almost as if you've looked across, and it's almost as if you are playing fantasy football and it's like, oh, I've got 3 Manchester City players or 4 Manchester City players in this team. I can't pick another one at right back. They've been one of the best teams we've seen. That run we've seen was one of the best runs we've seen in the last couple of years in the Premier League. And I think from right back, you had a player in Cancelo who was at the heart of all of that and was so good. But I'm not sure. Like, I'm sure you had Ayling in your fantasy team this year, and like maybe that connection to him is what we're actually seeing here this morning.
I didn't. I like yourself on it, Stuart Dallas.
Right. Well, good for you. It's hard to argue with the other 3 in the back 4, to be fair to you. I would have gone for Stones and Diaz and Luke Shaw.
Is Stones definitely in this team? Is he really? I mean, look, he looks okay, but there was definitely a bit of a wobble. When there was a bit of a wobble, it was because of him. I mean, obviously, but I think Diaz it's like Phil Babb being in the team of the tournament for the World Cup in '94 because he's playing alongside Paul McGrath.
Yeah, but I think we did a classic game club last year where we watched back at Giant Stadium, and it's sacrilegious to say Phil Babb was outstanding. Gets none of the credit for what happened in Giant Stadium because everyone talks about Paul McGrath, but actually.
But he's outstanding because he's playing alongside one of the best players in the world. That's the thing. There's like this superhero cloak that Diaz has suddenly. Look, Stones has had a good season. I'm not saying he hasn't, but surely there's somebody who's been better, no?
Well, I was changing this back and forth because you say Diaz will win Footballer of the Year. He had that transformative effect on the City defence, and he lived up to all the hype that was there when he was coming in about what he would bring in a leadership sense as well. And he played every game when it mattered. They did a lot of rotation at City, but Diaz was there, so nailed on. It was between Wesley Fofana and John Stones, but I think Stones, going back to Owen's point, when it mattered in that run, he was playing the best football of his career. It kind of breaks City's season into 3 parts. There's that first 13 games where they only win 5 of their first 13, then they win the next 14, and really since then they've the League One and they've been rotating players. But Stones and Diaz at one stage played 14 games together in a row and conceded 2 goals. And while he's had a bit of a wobble, particularly at international level, made the mistake and maybe that sort of stalled his rhythm. I think Stones, when City were at their best, he was a key part of that. So Fofana has been brilliant. In fact, all 3 of those Leicester centre-backs, Siontsu, Evans, have all had really strong seasons. Harry Maguire has been brilliant at times for Manchester United. Maybe made a couple too many mistakes. Ezri Konsa at Villa has come on massively over the last few months. Ben Godfrey at Everton's been a good player all season, but yeah, I'd be happy enough with Stones and Diaz as the back 2.
Okay, you're back 2 on the 23rd of December. Wesley Fofana and Fabinho. That's who you picked in your team of the year, Christmas. And I remember that being relatively controversial at the time. But Fabinho's claims for being the best centre-back in English football, not in your team of the season.
No. Well, that was a half season, and a lot happened.
Did something happen? Did something go wrong?
I if you were trying to find places for Liverpool players in a team of the season, I think the only two who would have any sort of a claim are probably Fabinho, who even when he's been in midfield has been very solid for Liverpool, and Mo Salah. But yeah, Fabinho, obviously they changed things. He's been between defence and midfield, and obviously it all fell apart. At that stage, there was a bit of controversy, but I think a lot of people thought Fabinho had done quite well. Luke Shaw at left back, nailed on. I think it's fairly straightforward. Best season of his career. Proper threat down the left-hand side. 5 assists. Got the response they wanted from the signing of Alex Telles, who I know United fans were very excited about at the start of the season. If there was a comeback of the year, they used to have a comeback of the year award on the PGA Tour. They had to, I think, stop it when Steve Stricker kept winning it. But Luke Shaw would win the left back of the year. Cresswell has been good at West Ham. Luca Dean at Everton. James Justin, talking about Leicester players, what a loss he was. Could play left back, right back, and was brilliant for 2/3 of the season until he picked up his injury. But I'd say when the team of the season has been picked by the players, Luke Shaw will be one of the easier selections.
All right, midfield, who have we got?
Declan Rice. I'm going for a 4-1-4-1 in honour of my good friend Marcelo Bielsa and that great Leeds United team of the last season. So Declan Rice as my holding midfielder. I think he's already far surpassed expectations. When he turned his back on Ireland, a lot of people felt Rice was maybe solid, one-dimensional holding midfielder, but this season he has gone to another level. He's anything but that. His ability to turn on the ball and turn defence into attack. He has a range of passing. Every game you watch him play in, he just seems to stand out a mile and will be one of the most sought-after players in the Premier League during the summer because so many teams need someone like him. As you know, I love giving Declan Rice awards, so I find it very hard to do anything like this and not include Declan Rice in it, but I think he absolutely deserves that holding role as it would be in this team. Other Calvin Phillips again at Leeds, great. Scott McTominay, I think, maybe underestimated at times at United.
No.
Because the fact they play 2 holding players. I think anytime I watch United, I'm impressed by McTominay. He's not helped by the fact he's
Player of the Year material. You're putting him in the conversation for the Team of the Year.
I think in that holding role, if as the John Giles wouldn't be happy listening to this, but as a player who's sitting back and letting the others do the attacking, you've got Rodri. Højbjerg's had a really good first season at Spurs, but I don't think McTominay of the Manchester United team, he's developed massively in the last year. He was that sort of just sitting player. He's added goals to his game, assists to his game, and I think a lot of the criticism is because they played 2 of them. Is he able to do that by himself in that United team? It doesn't seem so. Solskjaer certainly doesn't seem so, but Scott McTominay's had a really strong season.
So do you think Scott McTominay is closer to this team than Wilfred Ndidi, for example?
No, I would have had Wilfred Ndidi on the shortlist as well, and Tielemans. I had Tielemans in the team and took him out last minute. But listen, I was worried that I was going with recency. I said I had him in the team and I took him out last minute. Therefore, he's not there right now.
Right.
Tielemans, yes.
We've got him in your team. Yeah, we've got Declan Rice and Yuri Tielemans in your team. Who have you taken out for?
That's a great question.
Who is in for Tielemans? Let's come up with a short list. Maybe it's a.
So who's next on my list?
Tielemans.
Yuri Tielemans, nailed on starter in my team of the season. Was outstanding last night. I couldn't decide whether there was too much recency bias when I was putting Tielemans in, and was I putting too much stock in the cup final. He has been brilliant though, himself and Ndidi, as you say, in the middle of midfield for Leicester, and it's probably been a while coming for Yuri Tielemans because I remember when he left Anderlecht to go to Monaco, it felt at that time he might go to the Premier League, but everyone felt this is a really good decision to go to Monaco and progress, and he went at the worst possible time when they sold everybody and Mbappe left and Bernardo Silva and Mendy all left, and he sort of found himself at a bit of a shit show, and it's taken time to find his feet. But I think this summer for Belgium, he's going to be a key man in midfield for them, and I would happily have him in my team of the season.
Good, because you do. Let's move on. You've got we actually had it as like a 4-2-3-1, but you're saying it's 4-1-4-1.
But it is now again that Tielemans is back in the team. He makes it a 4-2-3-1 again, I think. I think you've changed formation again, Nathan.
Yeah, I have. Well, this has just gone to. This has been disastrous.
Okay, so just to remind everybody, your team at Christmas, in fairness, was Martinez in goals. Reece James was right back. Fofana and Fabinho centre backs. Andy Robertson was at left back. Not even in the conversation at the moment. You had Højbjerg and Henderson, and then you had Fernandes, Salah, Kane, and Son. Who have we got now? Who have we got left?
Well, Bruno Fernandes is in there.
Yeah.
An easy pick. What he did for probably the first 2/3 of the season, he's obviously faded quite a bit, but still has impacts without being able to control the game over the last while. But 18 goals, got to be in there. That's where Stuart Dallas is in the mix, but it's hard to find one of those midfielders that Stuart Dallas is getting in ahead of. I presume then I've gone with Ilkay Gundogan.
You have?
So I've Gundogan, no De Bruyne, or Foden. I've gone with Gundogan because in that spell, that was the best spell of Gundogan's career. Scored 11 goals in 12 games when City were at their very best. And, for that sort of 3-month spell, went from being just another City midfielder to being the best player in the league. And with that run of form, that really killed everybody off. De Bruyne was out for a good chunk of those games, and Gundogan became the main man. So I think with that, he has to be in the team. So not putting in De Bruyne was a difficult decision, and not putting in Foden. And I was watching back the match last night, looking at Foden and the goal he scored against Brighton. Should I squeeze this guy in there? I just felt with De Bruyne again that, does De Bruyne spark Manchester City, or do City need to spark De Bruyne? When City are playing well, De Bruyne tends to be playing well, but if they're not, does he drag them out of it? So De Bruyne was there for that first third of the season when City were doing nothing, when, as you say, for first 13 games nothing happened for them at all. He missed some of the games during that run. Obviously missed probably the performance of the season. The key performance of the season wasn't there the day they beat Liverpool 4-1. Played in the defeat against Manchester United without doing a huge amount. He's clearly a lovely footballer, one of the best in the Premier League, but I don't think he's got to his very best level this season when it really mattered for Manchester City. And I think Gundogan was the one who isn't of the same talent as De Bruyne. But
De Bruyne should really be, if he was fulfilling the level of hype and conversation around him and his potential, he should be in the conversation for the European Footballer of the Year. That's the level that De Bruyne has the potential to achieve. But he's never really been in that conversation for a sustained period of time, for a couple of seasons in a row, for over a 3-season period where you're like, yeah, this is one of the top 3 footballers in Europe. And he's having the impact on the title race and on the Champions League that you would expect from anybody who joins the conversation that is always there around Messi and Ronaldo and whoever else. But he hasn't hit that level.
But this is his time. And if he is to hit the level, this next 2 months are the time for Kevin De Bruyne, because he can go and play in a Champions League final and dominate a Champions League final and win it. And then he can go to a European Championship with one of the favourites and be the best player in that. And maybe we look at Kevin De Bruyne in a totally different way, and he's won absolutely everything. But I wouldn't say I find him frustrating to watch, because he's such a beautiful footballer. You enjoy watching him, but I would like him to take more games by the scruff of the neck. And there are more players who stand out, and I'm sure City fans will say they stand out because of what Kevin De Bruyne does and what he lays on a plate for Foden and Gundogan and Mahrez. But
he's been injured a bit, Nathan. That factors into the wider obviously, with team of the season, it's a fair point, but in the wider conversation around De Bruyne, I think that's a pretty harsh assessment. That's he's not at that level of European Player of the Year. I mean, when it comes to European midfielders, he's possibly the best at the moment. And this season, while it's been a brilliant season for City, hasn't been a great one for De Bruyne, because he did have those fitness issues around their purple patch. And I guess that's where your criticism lies, is that during that purple patch, it was Gundogan who was playing and carrying the team when De Bruyne was actually out for a while.
Yeah, it didn't just carry the team, went on this sensational run of form, which won them the title. And that's nothing Kevin De Bruyne could do about being out injured for some of those key games and missing the match against Liverpool. But that was the winning and losing of the title, that run of form. So, as I said, there's still an opportunity for De Bruyne. Nobody's saying that he's not an absolute quality player, one of the best in the Premier League. But I think Jared's dead right. He needs to elevate himself to another level. But he can do that now by playing in a Champions League final, dominating it, going to a European Championship, being brilliant at it. And suddenly he's won the Premier League, the Champions League, and maybe a European Championship in the summer. And there's no question then, next December when the awards have been handed out, that Kevin De Bruyne is right in the mix for them. But Foden was... I went for Riyad Mahrez as well. I think he's the most skillful player in the Premier League. his close control is ridiculous. When De Bruyne or one of those City midfielders is pinging those 40-yard crossfield balls, his ability to just take it on his left foot, on his instep, cut inside and smack it into the back of the net. He's had the best season since he arrived at Manchester City, and just a constant threat. So much of what they do since they changed system as well, and they don't play with a proper number 9 when they don't play with Aguero or Jesus. He rotates everywhere. He's involved in everything. Anytime he gets the ball, he makes something happen, never just holding on to it for the sake of it. And while he doesn't have maybe the stats of some of the other players, I just think Mahrez is such an exceptional talent. I'm happy to have him there just ahead of Phil Foden.
Well, maybe if you actually watch the games, Nathan, you would know that Phil Foden and Jack Grealish have both had better Premier League seasons than Riyad Mahrez.
Based on what? Purely statistical?
No, like, I mean, I got that tone from what you were saying there, all right, that you kind of sneer at stats, that if you look at a good stat line, you're like, it doesn't matter. I like my players to have close control and to be able to play a false 9. Is that what I'm getting here? Is that what I'm getting here? Like, I mean, it seems that it was Mahrez versus Foden.
I think Jack Grealish has had a great season, but he didn't play for half it. So
well, he made the exact same amount of starts as Riyad Mahrez.
No, but Mahrez is
what's your now? But that's your case against Grealish is he didn't play enough. He played as much as Mahrez
and was more effective in a worse team.
Well, clearly in a worse team, but I think Mahrez
recency
was at
bias,
a different level. What, that we've forgotten about Grealish?
Yeah, it is. I mean,
because he hasn't played in 3 months, quite possibly.
Well, you got the stats for how many starts they had.
They've both made 22 starts in this year's Premier League. Like, and the way Aston Villa crumbled without Jack Grealish in certain moments, not just in attack, but their whole team. It was almost like taking Calvin Phillips out of Leeds when he was missing for a couple of games. Whereas Jack Grealish is an attacking midfielder. It's incredible the control he has in every game that Villa have. And then, of course, you can sprinkle the stats in there, but I won't do that to you.
But to do it away, I would say that Riyad Mahrez is playing at a far different level in terms of the pressure, the week in, week out, having to deliver, having to win these big games, that Jack Grealish, maybe at Aston Villa, doesn't have to do.
What about Luke Ayling at right back? He's not under the same pressure as Aaron Wan-Bissaka or João Cancelo.
Well, but from what you want, Owen...
I'm responding to you. You're saying that the pressure is now all of a sudden an important thing.
I flip it back to you. So you're saying Cancelo should be in, but Mahrez shouldn't be in.
I'm not using the pressure as a. I'm not using the pressure as a way of judging this whatsoever. It's you that's using it.
No, you're just trying to flip it. I'm saying that Riyad Mahrez should be in the team of the season because he was absolutely outstanding. You're saying that Jack Grealish should be in because he played the same amount of games as him. I'm saying Mahrez plays at a far better quality of game, far more important games where he has to deliver.
I mean, because every single time Jack Grealish plays, the whole team rests on his shoulders, and success or failure is staying in the league. And he, last season, when it was required, popped up with the goal that kept him in the Premier League and was the only thing that was Premier League quality about them last season. And then this year, got them to be a team that had top 6 credentials. That's the transformative effect. Whatever about the Martinez impact that he had on Villa, you can see the impact that Jack Grealish had. They went from being a really good team who could effectively win almost any game, with potentially the exception of City, and being in almost every game, to a team who now you think are absolutely relegation candidates again because he's missing, and they've kind of been in that level of form.
We're forgetting one player.
I thought we had many conversations, Jer, where injuries don't impact on teams.
I don't know what you're saying.
I thought you were very sure that Virgil van Dijk's injury shouldn't have had such an impact on Liverpool.
Oh,
it's a good point. I mean, he's got there.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. This is like a conversation 9 months ago. I'm gonna get you.
Nathan, we are forgetting one player. Heung-min Son. He doesn't make the team.
No. Again, a very tight call. He probably has faded over the last few months. I presume he was in our team at a half season. Was probably one of the first names on it. Who are you leaving out for Heung-min Son? And I remember at the time, without going too into the stats, that his XG was insane. Basically, he was scoring far too many goals. And this was going to dry up, and it kind of did dry up a little bit. And like at the time, Spurs probably at the half season still had a chance of, competing for the title.
Yeah,
is that the best season of his career? There's no question about it. I just struggled to put him in instead of any of those other players. I'd have Jack Grealish ahead of him.
Thank you. That just warms the cockles of our hearts in the studio this morning. You're a striker. There's absolutely no debate about this.
Yeah, Harry Kane. as an out-and-out striker. It's more difficult now because there aren't that many out-and-out strikers when City aren't really playing one. Liverpool didn't have anybody who stood out. Harry Kane potentially going to win the Golden Boot again. Calvert-Lewin's had a great season. Once again, I remember we used to go to Goodison Park a lot, and you'd look at Calvert-Lewin and think, he's never going to quite have it. You know, he's 10 goal a season max, and now he's done it 2 seasons in a row. He's going to be in the England squad. Bamford, as you mentioned, has surprised everybody and far surpassed what everybody expected from him with the amount of goals he scored. Chris Wood, what he's done over the last few months has been brilliant. Ollie Watkins has had a great season, but Harry Kane is miles ahead of everybody else. And also, what he's added to his game, he's not just about scoring goals. He's dropping deeper. He has incredible amount of assists this season. He was never just a goal scorer, but he's taken that work rate and that team ethic to a whole other level this season. We'd
be going to the Euros thinking we were going to win it if we had Bamford, Grealish and Rice in our team. That's what we'd be like, convincing ourselves that, if this breaks our way, look at that team we have. It's as good as anybody's.
I don't think we'd be thinking we'd win it, but I'd be thinking we'd be very confident because, those 3 players suddenly make everybody better.
Yeah.
If you have 3 quality Premier League players, maybe we'll do we wouldn't get an Irish team of the season in the Premier League, but who are we looking at? Seamus Coleman is probably one of the only real contenders, unfortunately. So yeah, if Declan Rice and Jack Grealish were in an Irish jersey now, the results would be totally different. Everything would be totally different, but unfortunately not.
Nathan, good stuff. Thanks very much for that. Nathan Murphy with his team of the season that you can poke fun at on Twitter, and you can debate with him. He loves when you come in his mentions giving him rubbish. Nathan, thanks very much for that.
Cheers, lads.
21 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM, live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Jack Grealish is the most skillful player in the Premier League, says Dennis. And Mahrez barely starts, says Ryan. Ryan, you're incorrect. He starts at least 50% of the games in the league for Manchester City, which is, a lot, right? That's what we're saying? Right, I want to tell you about this. We have a brilliant roadshow coming your way. It is the OTB Sports UEFA Champions League final preview show with Pepsi Max. Teddy Sheringham is going to go into great detail about that night in Barcelona and the build-up to it. It's on the 27th of May, and there is an exclusive live showing for this, but you have to register for tickets, and they're going fast, so you've got to register now. Get on to otbsports.com/events to get your tickets. It's obviously a virtual event. It's a virtual roadshow. So Teddy Sheringham's going to be there. Ireland superstar Denise O'Sullivan, over 80 caps to her name, is going to join us as well. And we will be revealing more guests in the next 24 hours or so. Before we do, make sure you get on. You have to register. Tickets are free, but you've got to get on to otbsports.com/events. And you can sit back, relax, and enjoy some top-class knowledge from Teddy Sheringham. And to watch the show, as I said, you've got to register. Pepsi Max, maximum taste, no sugar. The hashtag is for the love of it. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to give you our first instalment of our Euro cheat sheets about why you should be supporting/hating on. Today, it is Italy and Turkey next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Alisson scored! Unbelievable! The goalkeeper has scored!
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast? If not, here's some of what you've missed over the last week.
Would he be better at Manchester United than Solskjaer?
Well, I'm only giving you my opinion. I believe so, yes.
And he picked the ball up and threw it. And I didn't see the first one. David Kemp, who's my assistant, came over to me and just said, Tone, have you seen how Rory throws this ball?
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Automower.
Automower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Automower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
First up, a Go Loud original from News Talk.
Get all the news you need to start your day with First Up, the podcast that brings you stories, analysis and interviews with the top newsmakers. First Up, available each weekday morning from 7 a.m. on Go Loud.
Subscribe to this podcast for free on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
It is 25 minutes past 8 this morning. We'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. We're going to be talking to John Duggan for Virtual Insanity ahead of the PGA Tour in just a couple of minutes' time. And we have a classic game club looking back 20 years ago to Dublin against Kerry in Thurles, a match that has proved to be relatively iconic given the fact that they were both rubbish that year ultimately when it came down to it. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Who doesn't love a good old draw between the 6th and 7th best teams in the country? Right, let's move on. It is time for our Euros cheat sheet, and Eoin, take it away. Group A.
Yeah, so what we're going to do here over the next little while is we're going to go through all 24 teams. We're going to have a little chat about them. But most importantly, we're going to give you all the information you need very quickly to be able to bluff on your WhatsApp group, to be able to pretend that you know what you're talking about when it comes to these teams. So what we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves 90 seconds only to go through each of these teams. We're going to start with Group A. We're going to start with Turkey. Let's get that timer going. So, the Turkey national football team, a little bit like the flip phone. All the rage in the noughties, but have faded into obscurity ever since. Have not been in a World Cup since 2002. We know what that feels like, although they did get to the semi-finals of that World Cup. We have no idea what that feels like. Since then, it has been a wasteland for Turkish football. According to Wikipedia, apparently they got to Euro 2016. I don't believe that for 1 second. I did forget to mention Euro 2008 there. As we see on screen, they went all the way to the semi-finals that year after scoring a heap of late goals. In qualifying for this year's tournament, they took 4 points off France and conceded fewer goals than literally everybody else in Europe during the campaign. That's because they've got Ozan Kabak at the heart of their defence. They've got Demiral of Juventus at the heart of their defence. And of course, they've got Kaliar Soyuncu at the heart of their defence, who is an outstanding centre-back and the greatest Lord Farquaad lookalike to ever played a game. They've also got Hakan Calhanoglu, who's one of their main players in attack with AC Milan. He's an unbelievable player. In front of him, they've got Burak Yilmaz, who we heard commentary of a couple of weeks ago. He's playing for Lille. He's been their top scorer in Ligue 1 this season. Bit of a Benjamin Button. He's 35 years of age. And then, of course, outside of him in attack, they've got the likes of Cengiz Under, who is really good, I promise, even though we haven't seen him play for Leicester City all season. So, can Turkey do it for their nation? Can they do it for Salt Bay? Can they do it for their football-loving president, Erdogan, who we are going to cut to playing a little bit of football here because he's an absolute superstar himself. This is him at a charity match, kicking a ball around, and wait for it. Boom.
Oh,
Erdogan, not an absolute top talent. Keep an eye out for the players as well, who might give him the old military salute if they go deep into this year's
tournament. The keeper saved it. Don't save the Erdogan shot. Oh, there's the salute.
So, yeah, football intrigue, political intrigue. That is the Turkey football team. Failed miserably to keep that within 90 seconds, but we'll give it another lash.
What's the form line like in the tournament, heading into the tournament for them?
Like, really good, as I say. Defensively, they've been excellent. Like, this is in a weird place, this European Championships, that we've already started the World Cup qualifiers for the next campaign. So if you look through their World Cup qualification group, it was always going to be a little bit of a tough one for them because they've got Netherlands and Norway in their qualifying group. But they've beaten them both already. They've had a couple of friendlies in 2020 outside of that as well. They drew 3-3 with Germany and Croatia. And, like, I mean, it's all about what they can do after they get out of the group, because I would absolutely expect them to do that.
OK. You've given us all the players to watch. Anybody else?
Like, I mean, the players to watch I've kind of gone through already, but Ergan Kakir, their goalkeeper, is somebody that Chelsea had an eye on last season when Kepa was crumbling and they went for Edouard Mendy instead. He's playing for Trabzonspor still at the moment. He's being linked to everybody around Europe. Expect him to have a big tournament, expect him to pick up a few names, but they are missing players as well, like Cenk Tosun, who we would know from the Premier League is injured, and he's got a couple of terrible injuries over the past couple of seasons. He's going to be out until October or November, so he ain't going to play a part. He was their top scorer in qualifying, but they've got Yilmaz, the man, the 35-year-old, scored a hat-trick against the Netherlands not too long ago.
Yeah, and that goal that he scored, that we were talking about with Philippe a couple of weeks back, so absolutely sensational. So he is in sensational form. What is the official OTB AM Euros prediction for Turkey?
I think they are going to get to the quarterfinals. I think they're going to finish second in their group. I think they're going to beat Denmark in the last 16, and then they are going to lose to the Netherlands in the quarterfinal. That is how I see it going for Turkey this year. But
it'd be a pretty 50-50 game against the Netherlands, though, right?
Netherlands obviously would have been a lot of people's favourites a couple of months ago, well, about 8 or 9 months ago, until Virgil van Dijk got injured. So that changes everything. That changes the entire spectrum of where Liverpool's season's gone. So why can't it change the entire spectrum of where the Netherlands are at?
I think Turkey would take that right now. They'd bite your hand off.
Absolutely, I think they would. So like this is like if you want a hipster team, if you want a team to get on the bandwagon of and say, hey, I was all on board the Turks long ago. This is the time to get on board Turkey. I think they put behind themselves a really bad decade. They've got this incredible recruitment strategy that they've changed now in Turkey, like where previously they would be quite dependent on a lot of Turkish players who'd left and were playing around Europe, especially when it comes to people living in Germany and had grown up through the academy systems in Germany, whereas now I think they've got like 11,000 kids through the Besiktas Academy alone, which is just dotted throughout Istanbul. They've got Altintop, who's like looking after the under-21 setup and looking after a lot of the youth teams, I think, in the Turkish Football Federation. So they've completely changed how they're looking at it, and they've got a really good young squad. Obviously, a lot of players playing in Serie A, as I mentioned there a moment ago. So they're still dependent on a little bit of an export market, but it seems that they've got like their 80 million population in line to actually turn this into a well-oiled football machine, because they have been perennial underachievers since 2002, 2008. And like even when we think about 2002, it was a massive shock, really. They got lucky. Like I'm trying to think that group, because they played Brazil in the semi-final. They played Brazil in their group stages as well. But I think it was like Costa Rica and China who were the other teams in that group, and then they had Senegal, and then they had Japan, or maybe the other way around.
Senegal, Japan, Senegal, yeah.
In their knockout games, and then they get to the semi-finals.
They had Japan in a World Cup where, you know, it was hard to beat the host nations, as we saw. Well, in fairness, they beat Japan and they beat South Korea, because they did end up winning the third place playoff against South Korea that year. But maybe the refereeing wasn't all in on South Korea in the third place playoff. Maybe they also viewed that as the bronze medal as not too important. So they got that, and then obviously it was just insane, the Euro 2008 performance from them, where they just kept scoring in injury time. I think one of the games was a late equaliser in like the 121st minute to take one of the games to penalties, if I recall correctly. And yeah, they're their two peaks, but like it feels that they were both overachievements and massive shocks, whereas should a country with the size of Turkey actually be looking at it from that perspective? Should they not be like, we deserve to be in the quarterfinals at World Cups pretty regularly? I mean, I remember when we were kids, we would routinely expect to beat Turkey whenever we played them. The one thing about being a hipster's choice, I mean, obviously you just need to familiarise yourself with the fairly horrific political situation there. And the fact that,
I mean, that's the other thing here, that as I kind of mentioned at the end, is the politicalisation almost of this team, where all the players did that military salute in 2019, I think it was definitely pre-pandemic, in one of the games where, as we saw on screen, all the players lined up. And UEFA, I'm not sure if they actually took punishment on him at that time, but they certainly condemned any sort of military salute, because obviously there was invasions into northern Syria from Turkey around that time. Erdogan, a questionable figure to say the very least. And within the squad then, there has obviously been players who aren't comfortable giving the military salute, and that has led to a little bit of unrest, nothing mad within the squad, but a little bit of unrest down through the last couple of years. Then you've got like the crazy situation with Hakan Şükür, who is their top scoring player of all time in Turkey, who would have been a vocal opponent of Erdogan, criticised him on Twitter. Erdogan responded by taking legal action against Şükür, and now I think he's living in America in exile. Like, that is their top scorer ever for Turkish football. So, like, there won't be politics in every single preview for this, but I think there's one country that are inextricably linked to the leader of their country, and it is Turkey.
That 2008, by the way, is the Euros. That was the they scored in stoppage time to win against Switzerland in the second group game, and they came from 2-0 down in the last 15 minutes with 2 goals in the last 3 minutes to beat the Czech Republic to go through from the group. So it was pretty heroic stuff. You can see how people will get behind that team. Right, Italy, let's move on. You've got 90 seconds cheat sheet to the Euros for Italy.
Okay, I got to do this one better. 90 seconds, let's go. 100% record in qualifying. Only Turkey conceded fewer goals in them. So Turkey play Italy in the first game. Expect this to be a 4-0 draw in Rome to get things underway. Of course, Italy didn't qualify for the 2018 World Cup, which seemed on the outside looking in like a bigger tragedy for Italian people than the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD. Their last memory from a major tournament then was this: Simone Zaza stepping up like a pony to the penalty against Germany at Euro 2016. That has been on loop for them for the last 5 years, again and again and again. Now, a lot of things have changed since then, but a lot of things have stayed the same. Chiellini and Bonucci are still playing international football, and funnily enough he's got to go back to 79 AD to find a game where the two of them didn't start at the heart of Italy's defence. But Buffon is gone, his international career is over. This will be the first tournament since Euro 2000 where he won't be starting in goal for them, but it is another Gianluigi. It will be Donnarumma, he's 22 years of age. It is his first major tournament. Manager-wise, Roberto Mancini is now their manager. He took over in 2018, has not lost a game since 2018. He did sign a new deal this week, though, until 2026, which is definitely going to go wrong at some point for him. And one of his main challenges over the next couple of weeks and months before the Euros is to find Italy's free-scoring nature again. They were brilliant in 2019. They scored 9 goals in their last game before the pandemic. But since then, they haven't managed more than 2 goals in a single game. On paper, though, their attack looks well stacked. They've got Chiesa, they've got Immobile, who's having an unbelievable couple of seasons with Lazio. In midfield, it's going to be Jorginho, Verratti and Nicolo Barella. They are well stacked, these stupid, sexy, talented Italians, and they are going to go all the way, according to some people, a dark horse at the very worst.
OK, so players to watch?
Players to watch. I've kind of gone through a couple of the midfielders there. Just watch out on Verratti. Like, as I said there, he's obviously an unbelievable player and he is everything to Italy. But PSG have said that he's out for the rest of the league season. It is an injury to his knee. So this is going to be touch and go, I'd imagine, all the way up till Italy's first game. If Verratti is out, Italy are going to struggle to get past the quarterfinals, I reckon. If he is there, they can beat anybody in this tournament. You look at the defence, as I say, Chiellini and Bonucci may well be the starting centre-backs when we actually get there. But we could see Bastoni, this 22-year-old who plays for Inter. Transfer market have him valued at 50 million quid. He could definitely come in and get significant minutes. We're going to see Florenzi on one side of the defence for sure. And maybe he, alongside Donnarumma, are the only two that are actually properly locked in on this Italian defence, because I know Chiellini's been missing a lot of the season through injury. You look at that midfield, the midfielders that I mentioned, outside of them, we could see, if we actually start with the attack, outside of Immobile, we could see Belotti, the 24, 25-year-old from Torino this season. I know they've had a poor enough year battling relegation in Serie A, but he's scored 13 goals for them. There was a thought that he could actually challenge Immobile for that number 9 role. And then we could also have Berardi in attack. This is a 16-goal scorer for Sassuolo this season in Inter, or in Serie A. He's more of a right winger, but he's a specialised right winger, so maybe that'll get him into the starting team. Chiesa, though, as I say, is probably going to have that position. And then, as I say, that midfield, which is absolutely stacked with talent. Nicolo Barella is going to be possibly one of the breakout stars at this year's Euros. He's been brilliant at the heart of Inter Milan's midfield all season.
You've sat on the fence a little bit. You've given yourself lots of wiggle room.
A lot of wiggle room.
With your prediction. So, what's your prediction? What is actually going to happen?
They're going to top this group. Then they've got, according to what I'm looking at here, a pretty easy round of 16 draw where they'll have either Ukraine or Austria. I think it might be Ukraine. Then it'll be Belgium in the quarterfinal. So I'm going to put my neck on the line here and say Belgium will beat Italy in the quarterfinal. If Verratti is out, it'll definitely happen. Even if Italy are fully loaded, I think Belgium will beat them. But if they win that quarterfinal, if they beat Belgium, as we expect, it will more than likely be a semi-final against France, 15 years on from the Zidane headbutt. So there will be plenty of incentive for France to embarrass Italy as much as possible on that night. So plenty of narrative if they actually do end up getting past Belgium and into the semi-finals.
All right. I was at that game.
Yeah?
I missed the headbutt.
Oh yeah, you said this before. How did this happen?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I was too busy looking at the crowd going, why are you guys all so angry? And then apparently there were replays in the stadium, but I didn't see them. Anyway, sure, look, what are you going to do? 8:38, if you want to get in touch with us this morning, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or of course, you can always leave a comment for us in the YouTube stream, as many of you have done. That is our Euros cheat sheet for Group A. We are underway. We're going to be doing every single nation in the Euros. Some will actually just take 90 seconds, and we'll try and stick to that.
It's never going to happen.
But you can also give us your predictions about what's going to happen too. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good mornings. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. A quick mention of the main story in the newspapers today. It's in the Examiner. Kiley wholeheartedly retracts Galway diving remarks. Remarkable stuff from John Kiley. He was speaking with Michael Moynihan in the Examiner. At the time, I was of the opinion that I'd seen an incident that I wasn't happy with. It was late in the game and very much to the forefront of my thoughts after the game. I should have paid more attention to my own performance and that of the team than the opposition. And then he goes on in great detail to say, look, I thought I saw something. I look back at the video. I saw something different, and I'm holding my hands up, and I really apologise to it. I think this is like incredible leadership from John Kiley, because most managers who come out and get head up in the aftermath of a game, stick by what they've done, and there's this, to repent is some kind of sign of weakness. But actually, I think John Kiely ends up looking like a much more reasonable person, and therefore, the next time he says something, you're going to be like, well, he's thought this through and he fully believes it. And if you're in the Limerick dressing room, you're like, fair play, because he's taken all the heat out of the Galway anger. He's actually, all the righteous Galway anger that they had for 24 hours is gone. And now there'll be a little bit of subtext to the next time they play. But the main subtext is going to be that these two teams play each other. They match up really well. They're the two best teams in the country at the moment. Tipperary probably have a belief that they can get right there too. But we suddenly have a competition, and rather than this being something that builds over the next few months from a Galway perspective, and any trepidation he might have had about, oh, it's on the dressing room wall, that's all gone. He's just managed that situation really well. Then blew up because he was very honest in the aftermath of the game, said he saw something, said he saw diving, and obviously saw some of the reaction, looked at the tape and decided he didn't see it. Fair play, I say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's completely owned this. Like, managers can come out pretty emotionally after a game and say things that maybe they regret, and this is one of those situations. Like, I think Kiely can absolutely fairly say that his frustration was maybe based towards the refereeing and the new rules, and it was more to do with that than Galway per se, and maybe Galway just kind of were caught in the crossfire a little bit of that. He's dealt with this brilliantly, and as you say, it's excellent leadership. Whenever there have been any issues in that Limerick camp, it seems that they have absolutely crushed them quickly and effectively, and have not allowed it to seep onto the pitch in any shape or form. So this is just another one of those scenarios. He's done himself a lot of favours there by getting out in front of this, because as you say, we're going to see Limerick and Galway play again. This is the wisdom out there, is that Galway can beat a team to beat Limerick. The last thing he wants is to be asked about this persistently, or for this to be hanging over the build-up to one of those games over the next few months, because we will see this fixture this summer, I suspect.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Time for this week's Virtual Insanity. John Duggan is with us. John, how are you?
Good, Jarno, and yourselves?
We were talking last night about the scrappy nature of the Premier League now that fans are back, and whether or not part of it was performative or it was just about the emotions of it. The home of this week's PGA is Kiawah Island, which, apart from the fact that Rory McIlroy won the PGA Tour there, is more famous in my mind for stuff that happened previously where people like to go to war here.
The War on the Shore in 1991, operation was a Desert Storm in Iraq was going on, and the Americans were playing the Europeans at the Ryder Cup, and you had a lot of great storylines. Seve and Jose Maria Olazábal not getting on really that well with Paul Azinger and his partner. These kind of accusations that Seve was involved in gamesmanship and coughing and this kind of thing.
Something to do with hot balls as well.
Was it? Hot balls?
Yeah, they would have the ball in their pocket, and the ball travels further when it's hot, and they would be changing between holes and all sorts of shenanigans that you're not allowed to accuse people of in public, but in the Ryder Cup you can say what you want.
You kind of can, and Nick Faldo didn't talk. I think to his playing partner David Guilford, if I remember. You had another situation where was it Mark Calcavecchia had a really tough time against Montgomery on the final day, kept on hitting it in the water on 17, that short par 3. Dave Ferrers had a great tournament, and what had happened was Europe had won the Ryder Cup in 1985 at the Belfry. That was the first time they'd ever won it, because they'd only become Europe in 1979. I think 1957 was the last time GB and I had won the Ryder Cup. So Tony Jacklin made it this big thing. The Concords, all the razzmatazz around it, and Seve getting invested in it. They won in 87 in Jack Nicklaus's backyard in Murfield Village in Ohio. 89 was tied, and then 91 the Americans. When Americans get interested in these kind of things, because sometimes the Ryder Cup they kind of switch off from it, but they were really up for it. And it was a really raucous atmosphere. It was a stadium atmosphere to the degree that God probably hadn't seen before. This was way even before Brookline and everything. So it went down to the final hole, and Bernhard Langer and Hale Irwin. And Bernhard Langer had a putt to share the Ryder Cup, and he missed it from about 6 feet. And America won by 14.5 to 13.5. And then some of the players were thrown into the Atlantic Ocean. So it was a great memory, yeah.
Is that Jose Maria Olazábal dancing on the... No,
that was 87. That was 87, yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
There's all that kind of in the background and the revenge. So that's Kiawah Island. That's what...
Yeah.
That's where they're playing this week.
Yeah, and that's where Padraig Harrington and Paul McGinley won the World Cup of Golf in 1997. So there was a great win for Padraig and Paul early in their careers. And then Rory's won there in 2012. In 2012, of the top 10, 7 of them were Europeans. So there's a linksy feel. It's on the Atlantic Ocean. There's a linksy feel in South Carolina to this course. So that you maybe give the Europeans a better chance than they normally would at these classic style PGA events. But so many plot lines going into it. Rory, who we'll talk about in a moment, because he's one of my tips. John Rahm of Spain has been a bit in and out of form. We've got Jordan Spieth going for the career Grand Slam. Bryson DeChambeau, once again, a bit in and out of form after winning the US Open in the fall, as they say in America, of last year. Dustin Johnson has been patchy again since he won. Justin Thomas won the Players' Championship. So many quality golfers in a deep field of 156. The longest course they will have ever seen for a major championship. Now, they can change the tees and move them up, but 7,876 yards, a par 72, a lot of par 5s on the 4 par 5s. The wind is the biggest defense of the course. It's meant to be quite benign this week, but the wind is the biggest defense of the course that's beside the sea.
Okay, so for a tournament like this, I know you like form around the track. How important is that? What has gone into your calculations this week when you're trying to sift through?
Paspalum greens. So that's the left field suggestion for you. The greens are different to what they normally would encounter on tour. So there's a few courses, Mayakoba in Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, the Middle East of the Saudi International, where they use these surfaces that are not normally used on tour. Rory McIlroy, I was watching the other day, and he's the headline tip this week for Virtual Insanity. I watched the final round from 2012, and he didn't drive the ball that great, but his chipping and his putting was sensational because he really got to grips with these greens, because he plays on these greens at a local club in Florida called the Bears Club, where Shane Lowry is actually a member as well. So he encountered similar conditions to his local course in Florida when he went to Kiawah Island in 2012, and it really suited him. He even spoke about it before the tournament started. So Keegan Bradley is used to them, and he was third in that tournament. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm also looking for players who are playing very well. So there were the two kind of considerations in my mind. Players who strike the ball well. I think if you're out of position on this course, it's harder. I think you need to strike the ball well. Colin Morikawa, the reigning champion, has been talking about that. It's a ball striker's course, because I think the greens are a little bit more receptive than you would maybe find at Augusta.
Okay. Let's get into them. You've already revealed that Rory McIlroy is your headline tip. I mean, if you'd said this to me 3 weeks ago, I would have said this virtual insanity has reached a point of insanity. But something happened. McIlroy won. He played weekend golf, and it was like, actually, you know what? I can still win. So what is giving you confidence to tip him up?
Well, Philip Reed was writing in the Irish Times today that 51 putts inside 6 feet at the Wells Fargo, he got all of them. What's given me confidence is that he's now working with new people. And Rory McIlroy's gone through a lot of people. I know he's had Michael Bannon for a long time, but he's gone through a lot of people. Dave Stockton, I remember talking about this guru called Clayton Skaggs around the Masters a year or two ago. But now he's working with the best new people. The best new people in the game, the best people in the game are Pete Cowan, swing coach who turned Gary Woodland and Henrik Stenson into major champions, who's sorting out McIlroy's swing, and Bob Rotella, who's the best mind guru in the game. So these are the two people he's working with. And I felt that he played within himself, and he played very mentally. His game looked very sharp mentally at the Wells Fargo. That gives me the confidence. He won by 8 shots, 2012. Obviously, he likes the track. I think it's meant to be quite a calm week wind-wise. I think if there's an Achilles heel about McIlroy, it's the fact that he hits the ball so high and he spins the ball. But I think that he has won an Open, so he should be able to cope with a windy situation. I think that, his driving off the tee wasn't brilliant at the Wells Fargo at Quail Hollow, but I think he didn't miss it by that far. And I think the generous fairways here should allow him to get into position to attack the par 5. So I think McIlroy, to me, it's about time he did this. And I'm just seeing the fact that he's working with different people now would suggest that for virtual money, €7 each way, 11 to 1 for McIlroy, 5th of the odds, the first 9 places, shop around for the each way. So he's the main one. The second one is Joaquin Niemann of Chile. I was looking through the Racing Post and Sporting Life and these great tipsters that they have, and they all pick 6 players. There's 156 players, so don't be afraid to pick a few, because it's all about profit, not about winners. Joaquin Niemann is 60 to 1, 55 to 1. Actually, he's come in the last few hours. 55 to 1 for 5 each way. In the top 10 in driving distance, total strokes gained, 22 years of age, was the top amateur in the world. I think the course will suit him. I remember at Hawaii earlier this year, I tipped him and he was second. I think Joaquin Niemann has got a good each-way chance. Victor Hovland from Norway. I love this guy because he plays with a smile on his face. He's 22 to 1 for 4 each way. Victor Hovland leads the scoring average on the PGA Tour, third in his last 2 starts. On Paspalum greens, he's won twice, Mayakoba and Puerto Rico. So I think Victor Hovland, who is an elite ball striker, who is accelerating through the game at a rapid rate. The only maybe drawback of his game is putting, but I think the greens will suit him, Victor Hovland. The fourth one, actually, this is the most value bet of Virtual Insanity this week. Victor Perez at 200 to 1 for 4 each way. Victor Perez has got the X factor that JP Fitzgerald, Rory's caddy in 2012, is on his bag.
Oh.
So he's now moved up to 33rd in the world rankings, right? He's a very decent iron player. He won the Dunhill Links in Scotland, so he's won on a windy course. He actually lives in Scotland at the moment. He lives around Dundee. He's from France, Victor Perez. He was second at the PGA, the flagship event in the European Tour, behind Tyrrell Hatton last autumn. On a Pete Dye course, this is a Pete Dye design. He was top 10 of the players. And also, this Paspalum greens, he's played very well in Saudi. So there's a lot of things saying to me that Victor Perez at 200 to 1 is the most overpriced player in the field this week. If you listen to what I'm saying, I think he's got a chance. He was also fourth in the match play in Texas in March. So that to me says a lot. Thomas Peters at 200 to 1 as well for 2 each way. Once again, has played well at Paspalum greens at the Olympic competition in Brazil, in Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. 2 top 15s there. The Saudi International. He's a big hitter. He's a bit of a maverick. He's a bit in and out, but he has a PGA top 10, a Masters top 10 in the past. Thomas Peters at 200 to 1. And finally, Emiliano Grillo from Argentina, 150 to 1 for 2 each way. Once again, puts well in these greens, is an elite ball, one of the best ball strikers in the world, but one of the most ordinary putters. But he does put well on these greens, and he is a good win player. So Grillo, Peters, Victor Perez, who I really, really do like, and I have had a bit of money on myself, Hovland, Niemann and Rory, though, the headline tip. Of all the main ones, I think Rory might do it this week.
Okay, so that's not bad. That's a broad sweep of the absolute favourites to a big outsider and everybody in between. I've momentarily had a brain fart and forgotten the name of the guy who you backed week in, week out, week in, week out, week in, week out.
Doc Redman, was it? Or
yeah, and last week he flirted.
Did flirt, and he was about like I don't know if you saw the Richard Bland story. Richard Bland won, I think, the 478th attempt, but Richard Bland was 219 to 1. K.H. Lee, who won the Byron Nelson, was 249 to 1. All it takes is 1 week. And that can be the frustration about this thing. And people are going, your tips are rubbish. They're rubbish. But I do think all you need is 2 to 3 weeks a year. And that's why I think you do need to think you're strategically about forgetting about how many winners you have. Think about how much profit you make. And if you have your top people like McIlroy, whatever, but if you also have your 200 to 1 shots, because a 200 to 1 golf bet is completely different to a horse race or a soccer bet or a political bet where it's not going to happen. In golf, it can't happen.
JD, good stuff. Enjoy the golf. Thanks a million.
Thanks, lads. Cheers.
John Duggan giving us his thoughts there this morning about virtual insanity for this week ahead of the PGA. And if you want to get involved with that, you can give us some conversation on 087 9180 180, and of course bet responsibly. Right, some comments coming through, some good points being made. And I've forgotten one critical aspect of bandwagoning: the kit. Did these teams, or do these teams, have a decent kit?
It's an exceptional point from Will there. That is actually going to have an immediate editorial impact on the show. I will have kits every single morning for the rest of the 22, and I'll do Turkey and Italy's kits tomorrow as well. That's a very good point.
Did Nathan Murphy really pick Mahrez with 9 goals and 7 assists over Salah with 22 goals and 5 assists?
I can't believe we forgot to say this. Like, it was down on my list of things to challenge him on, and somehow I got wound up in Jack Grealish. My love of Jack Grealish and the season that he's had blinded me. Mo Salah is probably the one that is the most egregious error, leaving him out there. The statistics that Adam... Well, sorry, Nathan's not into statistics, so what are we talking about?
Frank says, all those associated with English football are always yearning and searching for an English hero to rise up from the streets. And first it was Wilshere who failed miserably to deliver, and now it's Grealish. What? Jack Grealish has already had a better career than Jack Wilshere. Already. And, he's only getting started. Jack Grealish is not a failure.
This was the season, wasn't it, that Jack Grealish... I think maybe you said that 12 months ago or at the end of last season, you could say, OK, maybe there's a case to be made that he needs to kick on to a higher level. But I think pre-injury, especially for the first half of the season, I think Grealish put those words to bed.
Yeah, and look, if they put him in the Euros team, they're going to be very, very difficult to stop with him and Foden in the side. But if they don't, that's a stupid decision by Southgate, and that will be one of those decisions I think that haunts him when it comes back to getting a bigger gig. The Adam who sent in that comment on YouTube, his name is Adam Johnson, and somebody says, Ryan Bevan says, yeah, Nathan did do that. And by the way, you have a very unfortunate name, Adam. No offence intended. And Adam Johnson goes, I know. Cry laughing emoji.
He always gets... Adam is often commenting on our crappy quizzes, and there's always a reply saying you've got an unfortunate name, and he always deals with it with such good grace.
Yeah. So if you want to hang out in the YouTube comments, turns out there are some good people there sometimes. 8:55 this morning here on OTB AM. We'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. And a reminder, of course, OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good mornings. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Now, Cavan star Aishling Sheridan joins us to talk about the launch of the Lidl National Football Leagues this weekend. The LGFA and Lidl have announced that 50 games in the 2021 Lidl Ladies National Football League will be streamed live and available to view for free. It's going to be on social or on a course on TG Car. Aishling, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good to talk to you back in Ireland. Last time we had you on, you were sunning yourself in glorious Australian weather. So how difficult or otherwise has been the recalibration to the cold and bitterness here?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit different. I think it hasn't stopped raining since I've got home. But yeah, no, I'm getting used to it now. I think Melbourne was coming into its winter stage anyway. So I was probably leaving one expecting to go home to another summer. But just waiting for Ireland now for the sun to eventually come out. But hopefully in the next month or so, Ireland will see some sun.
And what kind of form are you in, like in terms of the actual playing of the game at the moment? How's that going?
It's going okay. I'm not going to lie. It is hard to transition back. I think even self-confidence and the whole psychological aspect of it as well, you know, getting used to the round ball or, you know, probably putting a little bit more perceived pressure on yourself. It is quite difficult, but I've been up, you know, up in my local park trying to practice, even just getting used to the different changing directions, kicking the ball slightly different. And yeah, it's been difficult, but you know, I've had a lot of time now to practice, so that's good. Was there any
opportunity for challenge matches yet? Have you actually got a proper game under your belt?
Yeah, we had a challenge game there just gone by this weekend. So I suppose it was good to just get into an actual game situation. You know, it's well, you know, being able to play an in-house game, but you know, I find the intensity is always a little bit different if you're playing against a different team. So yeah, I've got a good chance, I suppose, last weekend to get a game under my belt before our first round of the league this weekend. And did you notice that there was also a benefit, I guess, from the time that you spent in Australia, just in terms of like the physical capabilities that you might have versus somebody who didn't have the opportunity to be professional for a short period of time? Yeah, there is some things you probably find. I told my family and the girls don't expect me to be flying fit now, but in case people had that idea that I'll be able to now, you know, have a little bit more kilometres in my legs. But again, yeah, no, it was, I suppose you do come back with that base level of fitness anyways. But, you know, I suppose everyone was doing their own training in lockdown during the past few months. So for me, I suppose I always find there's a difference between match fitness and actually being able to run. So I suppose having that under my belt does help.
You say that there was a little bit of self-imposed pressure coming back, removing yourself from Australia and coming back here again. Could you explain that a little bit and where that pressure is coming from?
Yeah, I suppose, you know, being I suppose in that environment, you're probably your own worst critic. So for me, again, like I said there, you know, I didn't want people to expect me to be flying fit. Not that anyone is, you know, but in your head, you know, you're probably saying to yourself, oh, well, everyone probably thinks I'm going to be extremely fit, or, you know, I'm going to snap back into it straight away. Like I'll not lie. I remember my first training back there in Cavan, and you know, we were doing a shooting drill, and I think I missed 5 out of 6 shots. But after I missed the first one, you know, I kind of got into my own head, that, okay, no, everyone's seen I missed the first one. And, it is your own self that's putting the pressure on. So I kind of had to take a step back, and just kind of reanalyze everything and see, why am I putting this pressure on myself? So lucky I kind of snapped out of that straight away and, back to normal now.
Because it is a unique situation where it's like all of a sudden you're a professional sports person and you're going to stick out. I mean, like when people look through the team sheets, even I think the AFLW players are probably more recognisable at this stage. I think it's been great exposure. Like, is that something that you have to have a conversation with your coach about how to deal with that pressure, or do you have conversations around that?
Yeah, you can do. I haven't this year. I kind of just, I suppose, having my sisters beside me, I have 2 sisters with me on the Cavan team, they kind of understand me. So at least I kind of have them to fall back on. And, even if I'm not happy with a performance, they kind of help me with that. But yeah, I know the coaches would be aware, and, I have talked to our coach, Jerry, about the upcoming games. And, if, players might be targeted, kind of double marked or whatever that might happen. But, look, it's probably your own pressure you put on yourself, and probably no need for half it.
That's the thing. It's like there's probably 2 sides to it. One is the pressure, and then when that dissipates a little bit, there'll be the confidence from the fact that you had a really successful time down there. So there's that, you can lean on that too, I guess, or maybe you need to be able to lean on that a bit.
Yeah, no, definitely you do. And I think, one thing I always say to myself, and, I've always known, is that, like, it's okay to make mistakes, so especially, like, for example, that first training back when, my shots I just wasn't connecting with the ball. And, it was my first time kicking the round ball in 6-7 months. I was talking to my dad about that, and he's like, again, you have to remember, I know, obviously no football has happened here, and I obviously wasn't playing football, but I hadn't actually kicked a round ball really in 6-7 months. So, you can't expect to get straight back into everything. And I suppose then looking back on the season again with the AFL, again, you have to build confidence with that, and that only comes with practice. And once you kind of have that behind you, I felt a lot more comfortable in games this year, which I suppose shown, especially in my second year. So I suppose it'll probably be the same situation here, just having confidence and doing little bits that will help bring up that confidence.
What's the biggest thing you've learned from being in a professional setup so far?
Personally, it's probably how to manage your body. Probably that and leadership qualities. If I take managing your body, for example, we're very lucky in Collingwood to have physios and doctors and trainers with us all the time. And if we have something wrong, we just have to message one of them and we get seen to straight away. And it's one thing I kind of noticed out there, like in comparison to here, I find if sometimes we have a niggle here or, your hamstring might feel sore, you kind of have that impression that, oh, look, it'll be fine, I'll keep training, and probably do more damage than you should. Whereas in Australia, I've found that, they really don't take any chances, and you have to be quite upfront and honest, and that probably comes on behalf of the player. And, you have to, if you have any soreness or tightness, you get it seen to straight away. Whereas I've definitely found here, I kind of nearly don't think anything of it, because I'm just like, oh, it's fine, I'll get through it. And, that's one thing then I suppose that probably happened a few of us over in Australia, was we didn't probably take our niggles serious, and, probably affected us more so in the long run. So I suppose it's all comes down to the player themselves, but, it's definitely how to manage your body and, taking everything serious, whether it's tightness, soreness or an injury.
Is there a cultural difference there where the Irish way is to play on no matter what you feel?
Yeah, definitely. And, myself and my housemate and teammate Sarah, we would have always said, oh, well, like, they've only tight calf, for example, why aren't they training? And, the two of us, I remember our first week back after in pre-season in January there, so we had done quarantine together, and then we were back training, and, we were flat out training, we were doing extra skill sessions, and both of our bodies actually pulled up quite sore. And, we kind of tried to just forget about it and think, oh, it's fine, it's only been back. But, I think then both of us picked up little, niggles along the way, which probably then impacted, the next few weeks. And, then we could really understand why when some of the girls find they might have something wrong, even though it might just be a tightness, that they take it serious and get it seen to. And I think that's only this year we've realised the importance of that.
In terms of the actual game itself, you said you felt more comfortable this year, or there were improvements. What kind of improvements and what areas of your game got better just from being an Aussie rules footballer for the second season?
Definitely found my physicality got better. You know, last year I probably didn't lay as much tackles as I should have, so I kind of did a bit of one-on-one coaching on the tackling technique, because there is a certain technique to it in AFL. So that was one thing I kind of did with my forwards coach, and you know, then it was kind of evident throughout the season. I got a good few tackles majority of games, which, you know, is brilliant for a forward, because it means you're putting on good pressure inside your forward line. So that was one thing I kind of set myself out to work on, and we're very lucky we kind of go through points where we can improve each year, where we were good. You know, tackling and probably the ground balls is probably my two areas of improvement. So for being able to pick up the ball on the ground, you know, whatever way it's coming, or winning it low on the ground, and then obviously tackling, I think, were my two main areas of improvement this year.
And are they transferable? I know the physicality in the women's game is constantly up for review, and the players want it to be more physical, and the rules are kind of catching up with that as well. So is that something you think you'll be able to put into practice in GAA this year?
In some ways, yes, probably more so protecting your body. You know, if I'm going up for a throw up with someone, how to kind of shoulder on shoulder with someone, now not actually, you know, shouldering, but like having that body on body contact and being strong under the ball is probably some way I can use that. Now, obviously not the full on tackle. I don't think that would go down well. But and then obviously being able to get low to the ground, you know, that's definitely something that I think is quite transferable to this sport, and probably a little bit easier because it's a round ball. So generally, if it's coming bouncing to you, it will come right at your direction instead of bouncing and going off left or right.
What are the expectations for Cavan? What do you guys think is achievable this year?
I definitely think, you know, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourselves, but a first win probably in the league. Last year's league campaign probably wasn't our best, and you know, I kind of missed that, so I'm excited to, you know, just get out and get playing league. So hopefully get a win under our belt against Monaghan, and we haven't beaten them in a few years, and obviously they're our neighbouring county, so there's always that bit of rivalry. So you'd ideally like to, you know, get a win under your belt, and hopefully, I suppose, come out of that group that we're in, and then maybe make it to league semi. And then I suppose if you take it to championship, we're very lucky to be competing in Ulster Championship. So Ulster is always going to be the main goal, and then, you know, you focus on the All-Ireland series after that.
What's your expectation in terms of the next AFLW season then, or the seasons that come? Do we expect more Irish players to go down under?
I definitely do think there might be a few more. It's hard to know in the next year, will there be anyone? It is quite hard to get into Australia at the current moment, and then, you know, we might have to do another hotel quarantine again, so players have to take that into account. The season's starting a lot earlier, so training might be starting in September, whereas last year it started late November, so it is that bit earlier. You know, you're going to be playing games over Christmas, so again, that's another Christmas abroad. So I think there's a lot of factors to take into account for next year. But hopefully, you know, if things pick up, and, you know, it might be as hard to get into Australia, and, you know, it's not as, I suppose, expensive to try bring international players over. I do think in the next 2 to 3 years, especially with 4 new teams potentially coming in after next year, there might be, you know, up to 5 new Irish players. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, listen, it's obviously been great. As Eoin said, the profile of the league's been huge, and it's really helped, I think, the profile of the women's game here as well. I don't know if you feel that, if you kind of feel like that ambassadorial side of it, it's almost completely incidental, and I'm sure it isn't part of your thinking, but it's there.
Oh, 100%. You know, and I was even thinking yesterday, you know, Lidl being able to broadcast the 50 games during the league, you know, that is honestly massive. And yes, it's, I suppose, for people looking in, you know, it is big, but like, I think if you look at it from a player's perspective, you know, it honestly means so much to us. You know, if your family can't make it, your friends, your, you know, supporters, you know, and that's one thing I found, you know, especially from talking to people at home when I was away, you know, they found that sport gave them so much joy, and when nothing else was on. So I think it's absolutely massive. And, you know, what Lidl have done in the past few years for ladies Gaelic football, has been absolutely outstanding. And it's amazing to see, the younger ones aspiring to be county players and having actual role models to look up towards.
Aishling, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Best of luck with the new season too.
Thank you very much.
It's Aishling Sheridan there giving us some thoughts on the restart of the Lidl National Football League, which is underway this weekend. It's 10 minutes past 9. If you want to get in touch with us here this morning, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Coming up on OTB Sports Radio today, Manu Petit is OTB Gold at 1 o'clock. Mount Rushmore is Derry at 3. Our retro panel is Billy Walsh, Jason Sherlock and Jarlath Regan at 4 o'clock. And then Luke Keeney tells us the story of being a Donegal footballer and having his hip replaced in his 20s. Classic Game Club is back. It's up next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Golf Weekly, the best golf podcast on the planet.
Honestly, I couldn't think of anything worse to do right now. I'm not a friend of the pod, not a fan of Nathan. I think he's a terrible journalist. And Eoin's that gullible, he'd swallow a shovel.
With more exclusive content.
Golf Weekly history coming at you. This is our first ever major watch-along party.
Big name interviews.
Hard to make all these birdies, and I'm honestly standing on the 18th tee going, Jesus, if he beats me now after making a 10.
Give your dad the perfect gift this Father's Day. Go to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly and sign him up as a friend of the pod now.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna auto mower.
Auto mower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna auto mower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
At Online Tradesmen, we've never been busier. And if you're a trade professional, there's never been a better time to join us. Access over €17 million worth of jobs nationwide every month, along with e-learning and other supports. Need a website for your business? It's included in your membership. And on average, Online Tradesmen members get up to 10 times their fee back in new sales, marketing tools and savings. Apply today at onlinetradesmen.ie. Online Tradesmen, the home of qualified trade professionals.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
It is time for the Classic Game Club. You are welcome along. We are back for 1 week only. Maybe we'll do a few more of these, but certainly it's going to be... the reason why we're back is because this weekend it is Dublin versus Kerry in Thurles in the National League. It is a complete novelty because Dublin were training during COVID and have been pushed out of Croke Park or Parnell Park, who knows where they would have played their home game, and they've got to play this weekend in Thurles. But also 20 years ago this year, Kerry played Dublin in Thurles twice. So today we are going through the drawn game for the Classic Game Club from 2001, Kerry against Dublin in an All-Ireland football quarter-final. It's Eoin here, it's Ger here, we've got Tommy on the line. Tommy, how are you?
Hey folks, how are we? How are we doing?
So as ever, we're going to go through the moments of the game. We're going to pick our secret man of the match, our sliding doors moments, and much, much more. Ger, your memories of this match? I presume this is before your broadcasting career. This is like
no? We'd obviously started in April 2000 and.
April 2,
you're right. 2002. You're right. So yeah, I was doing something else.
Do you remember watching this game?
I don't.
Right. Okay.
I don't actually. I have no strong specific recollection. That I was looking back at that 2001 championship. It was bananas. It was absolutely bananas. There was a Meath-Westmeath trilogy.
Yeah.
Meath scrape over them by a point in Leinster and then meet them again in an All-Ireland quarter-final, and it's a draw where Westmeath scored 3 first-half goals and Meath managed to get back and draw that game and then win the replay relatively comfortably. But there's brilliant post-match footage of Luke Dempsey and Sean Boylan doing a joint interview on the sideline with Dara as the sideline reporter, and the two of them were together and they're just having the Luke is completely drained and Boylan's kind of looking at him going, "Come on, it's okay, we'll all be okay." And then at the very end, he has a go at Brolly, and they cut back to Brolly, who's like a young man going, "I can't believe anybody takes anything I say seriously."
This was the quarterfinals.
That same weekend, yeah.
Yeah, this is, and I think 3 of the quarterfinals that year had been repeat meetings. So Kerry Dublin was the only new one that hadn't already happened in the provincial championships.
Like, heartbreaking. So I was, this is the first backdoor All-Ireland. Yeah. Ultimately Galway win it, but Roscommon had beaten Galway and won Connacht, and their reward is an All-Ireland quarter-final against Galway. You're like, oh my God. And likewise, the Derry team of Anthony Towell get knocked out in Ulster, and Tyrone win. I think Tyrone win the Ulster that year. Is that right?
In 2001, sure. I think you're right, actually.
I think Tyrone win it, and then they meet Derry in All-Ireland quarter-final. You're like, oh, come on. This is all pre-Mickey Hart, because the next couple of years are really interesting. It's new manager, new manager. New manager wins All-Irelands for the next 3 years after this, I think.
And pushes the game forward, which we'll get to in a moment about the quality of this game. Maybe it's just the fact that these just aren't the two best teams in the country. Tommy, what do you remember about this? You've got a frozen Tommy Rooney. Maybe he just doesn't remember much. Maybe it's all about the Meath. Can you hear us, Tommy?
I think I'm just frozen.
Any memories from 2001 before you were watching it?
The first game I was ever in Croke Park was the following match, and it was Meath against Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final. So that's kind of my first real big memory of watching an inter-county game live. I don't remember a whole pile about the championship that year. I do know that I wasn't brought to the All-Ireland final, and that broke my heart. So, yeah, I kind of came on the premise that I do this classic game club if we end up doing Meath and Kerry in the classic game club. So I'm ready to go for that.
We will eventually get to it. It's just because of Kerry Dublin and Thurles this weekend. We've pushed this to the front of the queue, and then I guess it'll be worth all the pain of Kerry Meath doing that one. Just to add a bit of... Go on, Ger.
I think the Meath Kerry, the pain that you feel now should not be anything like the pain that Tommy feels, because that's the end of Meath. And there's great post-match stuff where McGuinness comes out afterwards and is like McDermott is like so the Meath crowd taunt Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final after Kerry come through this sequence of games, because Meath are like, ole, ole,
Ireland was fuming.
At the end
they've all talked about that.
Tommy was there, and Meath,
I didn't know
Meath are shamed by this in a weird way, and then obviously get hockeyed in the All-Ireland final.
Like I've actually watched that Meath Kerry game, and we'll come to it at some stage, but the quality isn't amazing in that game as well. It wasn't like I remembered it.
We'll have that quality conversation. These matches, this championship, is amazing because it turns out anybody can beat anybody.
Yeah.
It's like a roulette wheel, and you don't know where it's going to land. And it could land on Roscommon, it could land on Tyrone, it could land on Armagh, it could land on Westmeath, and any of those teams could have beaten the ultimate All-Ireland champions or the ultimate All-Ireland finalists or any of these two teams, and that is glorious.
Yeah, the teams are human. I think that's the big thing about this. And we'll come to it a little later when it comes to some of Dublin's decision-making on the field. But, like, they're human. 20 years on, these teams have hit a supernova level of decision-making.
So just to add a bit of meat onto the bone of the context there, Kerry come into this game as Munster champions, as All-Ireland champions. Dublin kind of looking to get a second goal at the All-Ireland team from '95, but it's quite a new team as well. It's about half and half, really, when you look at that team. The sides hadn't met in championship in 16 years before this game in Thurles in 2001, so there was massive anticipation going into it. The qualifiers were here, the quarterfinals were here. Croke Park, still under redevelopment. Hogan Stand was only one tier high by early August of that year, so it was off to Thurles with this quarterfinal. And the setting really is everything. Cars getting abandoned in all sorts of places, people just stopping and going in to watch the game in a pub, not bothering to go. We saw the scenes there at Thurles train station, which was clearly the way to go, and I'm sure that just the train tickets just sold out. Like, I was at this game and I just remember Thurles being crazy. There was this strange sort of jovial coming together of Kerry and Dublin fans beforehand. It was absolutely brilliant. Like, maybe Croke Park just isn't conducive to that happening because the Dublin fans are their sort of haunts and the Kerry fans are their haunts, and like the Gresham and maybe Jury's Hotel and those sort of places. Whereas in Thurles, everybody just came together outside Hayes' Hotel or inside Hayes' Hotel, and every second jersey was Kerry and Dublin. Everybody having to crack with one another. It was not partisan whatsoever. It was just this really joyful experience pre-game. Obviously, within the game, once the ball is thrown in, the fans hate each other and they hate the opposition teams. But that was just for the 70 minutes of the game. Beforehand and afterwards, it was this brilliant coming together of two supporters who were both kind of like fish out of water. I know Kerry had way more experience playing in Thurles, but Dublin people in particular coming to Thurles was like, wow, this is like the Algarve.
So the Dublin fans, the Dublin supporters who've travelled such a long way today, says Ger Canning in the middle of the game. Just a quick Google Maps there. Dublin to Thurles, 1 hour and 44 minutes. Tralee to Thurles, 2 hours and 16 minutes. I'm like, what? It's actually closer for most of the Dublin fans than it would be for the ones, and that's just from Tralee. What about if they're coming from the south of Kerry? Like, what about if you're coming from Dingle? I mean,
what if you come from Valencia and you've got to, get a boat over to the other?
You have to row over.
You know?
I like this. I mean, it is remarkable that the Dubs went to Thurles twice, and nobody thought this is brilliant. Let's do this. Let's make them always travel. It's amazing that this didn't become a thing afterwards.
Yeah, like, because you're getting 50,000 at the gate anyway. Like, in fairness, Kerry Dublin in the quarterfinal is 82,000. I'm sure that's what it was in 09. But like, just for the, is it worth it? Like, I mean,
yes.
Like to lose that 30,000, I think so. I think what you're getting are these unbelievable moments immediately. Like, even in the league, I think that if there is, I mean, you're not going to have a situation every year where Dublin are going to lose home advantage. But if there was a packed crowd in Thurles this Sunday, that would be incredible. And I know it's only there. We're going to be watching it in a vacuous place, and it's not going to be great. But I think it's definitely something to look at for the future, because the atmosphere and the setting
and the Gaelic grounds, sticking the Gaelic grounds, sticking Páirc Uí Chaoimh, like, let's not have it be Dublin playing every knockout championship game. The Super 8s games being mandated to be in Croke Park as opposed to being neutral. They could easily have played in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. The Super 8s, look, let's not get into it.
Let's go through.
Do you remember a huge amount from actually being there? Like, you're what, 7 or 8 years old in 2001?
I remember Morris's kick. Like, that is something that is just imprinted in your brain, because you're like, wow, we're losing this game. I don't remember anything about the game other than that, the fact that Kerry were about to lose and all of a sudden they weren't about to lose. And I remember watching it on the Sunday game that night almost more clearly than the kick itself, but just realising at this moment that this was instantly iconic. Now, I do think, like, there's sections of my childhood. I was opposite. I wasn't right behind him. I was at the opposite side. Which I don't know the names of the stands in Thurles other than the Killinan end, but the one at the stand along the side opposite Morris Fitz. So I didn't have the best view like the camera did. But like, all these things kind of get meshed together in your childhood, where there was a thing that RTE did a couple of years afterwards where they were picking the greatest GEA moment of all time. And I know that kick from Morris Fitz comes second after Michael Donlan's goal. There was uproar in Kerry over that Morris Fitz's kick didn't win. So all these things kind of come together, and you're like, how much of my information actually came from experiencing that live versus how much does it actually come from watching it back afterwards again and again? I think it's probably more the latter. But we shouldn't get into this. There's plenty of moments beside that. But before that, I just want to go through the teams this day. So Kerry started with a team. Declan O'Keefe in goals. Mossy Lyons, Seamus Moynihan, Mike McCarthy as their full back line. Tomas O'Shea, Eamon Fitzmaurice and Tom O'Sullivan was the half-backs. Darragh O'Shea and Donald Daly in midfield. Aidan McGarrett, Owen Brosnan and Noel Kennelly was the half-forward line, with Mike Frank Russell, Darragh O'Canada and Johnny Crowley in their full forward line. Maurice Fitzgerald started on the bench. For Dublin then, it was Davy Byrne in goals. They did not pick Stephen Cluxton, even though he was very much a Dublin senior by this stage. Davy Byrne had won the jersey back, I think is how Ger Canning puts it in commentary. Paddy Christie, Shane Ryan, Coleman Goggins was the full back line. Paul Curran, Johnny McGee, Patter Andrews in the half backs. Darren Homan and Kieran Whelan in midfield. The most brutish midfield of all time, possibly. Enda Sheehy, Jason Sherlock, Colin Moran, the half forwards, and then Declan Darcy, Ian Robertson, Desi Farrell in the full forward line. You'd the likes of Jim Gavin on the bench, you'd Vinnie Murphy on the bench, and the referee, who we'll come to in a while, is Mick Curley, a fella from Galway who was, according to the commentary, a Garda superintendent. So there's a great line where Johnny Crowley is raging about a free, and he like goes up to the ref and he's like, "Screw you, referee!" And then Ger Canning is like, "Of course, Johnny Crowley is a referee is a Garda in Bishopstown. Mick Curley is superintendent in the Gardaí," and it's like, this guy is may have done himself out of a promotion down the line. But those were the teams which sets the scene for the moments of the match. And I just want to kick this off, lads, with the early first half, if we can use that as a moment, because this was just an exhibition of terrible, terrible, terrible football. And it's hard to know where to even point the finger of blame. Was it just everybody was really nervous and everybody was unbelievably wired? That kicks were going everywhere, and Dublin's goal kicking at the start was just awful, even though they had a lot of really good opportunities.
Jared, like, was this a standard of football in 2001? was this what was to be expected? Because when I look back, like, clouded with the last 10 years of Dublin and Donegal and Kerry and Mayo and the high levels of retaining possession, and even at club level, this has seeped in that you don't give the ball away. You bring the ball in a horseshoe. If you're not in the right shooting position, you come back to your quarterback at the 45 and you work it right, you work it left, and you get to the shooting position. Anyone was shooting. Everyone was shooting. Collie Moran was skying balls falling over on his left. Darren Holman was hoofing ball up into the air. They'd be crucified if they did that in that current.
They would be crucified if they did it in the current team. But you've got to remember, this is like the back door is just in. Like the evolution of the game is just beginning to seep in. That there's no defensive structure. There's no discernible defensive structure on display from either team. And if you look at the brain power of the people who are on the field and on the bench, and you think about the impact that they've had on the game in terms of coaching and management. You know, Fitzmaurice is there at centre-back, and he's doing stuff that he would never accept his own teammates doing. Jim Gavin can't get in this team. Jason Sherlock, like, you can actually see Sherlock coming out and trying to be a bit of a point guard, but not enough of his teammates are on the same wavelength as he is, trying to implement some of the basketball stuff. Him and Desi are on the same wavelength, and after that, in terms of forwards, not the rest of them really. But I don't see this as bad. I see this as highly enjoyable, like, you know, like a street brawl. You know, it's a street brawl that you've stumbled upon on a YouTube wormhole, and you're not turning it off, and you're not sitting there going, well, I'm docking points because, you know, he's got his jaw out, ready to get thumped, or that's too much of a haymaker and he's lost control of it. I'm sitting there intrigued by the street brawl.
It's like football you'd find on the dark web with the first 7 minutes of this game. It's
incredible, I agree.
But Dublin were brilliant. They just couldn't score.
Yeah, that was it.
They absolutely killed Kerry at various stages in this game, and that kind of is a precursor to the end of the game, which this game makes no sense. It's bonkers. It's completely wild. Like, both teams afterwards must have been like, oh, I can't believe we let that behind us.
Yeah, like, absolutely. So those early exchanges, as you say, Dublin are playing really good football, but they just can't kick the ball over the bar. Like, Desi Farrell's inside in full forward. He's getting angry at his teammates for some wayward kicking in. You've got Seamus Moynihan, who's playing a blinder, but as you say, it's very much hit and hope stuff, and there's a little bit of luck that comes with a bit of the defending on both sides. But by and large, Kerry's backs maybe are on top in certain areas. Darragh O'Shea is killing Dublin in midfield at the start, and then Kerry get an early goal, where Davy Byrne doesn't cover himself in glory too much, but Darragh O'Connell does a brilliant job of bringing McArroll's in, and he finishes to the back of the net. And that's the scene set for the start of the game. Dublin wasteful, Kerry get the goal, they're in the lead. But it's the second quarter of the game, which is extraordinary. Now, I'm not sure, Jared, you want to take us through these, but there are two of the worst misses in front of goal I think I've ever seen. Tommy, I'm not sure if you agree, but I can't remember two in such proximity. We've got Collie Moran and we've got Desi Farrell.
Collie Moran is on the verge of scoring the greatest GAA goal of all time. He picks the ball up between his own 45 and the 65 and is kind of, you can see the criticism already mounting from the commentators, like, oh, there's no dubs in front of him. Oh, what's he going to do with this? There's nowhere for it to go. Kind of like and maybe they were trying some kind of ad hoc, weird defensive system, and it obviously didn't work. And he looks up and there's a bit of daylight. And the injection of pace that Collie Moran has is like one of the biggest injections of pace you're ever going to see in GAA. He kind of loses control of the ball at one point. The solo, which was very fluid, it kind of arcs up in the air. And at that point, another Kerry defender comes in, and he used that to swivel past him. And all of a sudden, he's kind of like 35 metres from goal, having made 60 metres. And then there's a 1-2 on if he looks up. Got to beat the defender first, beats the defender, and there's a 1-2 on with Desi. And Desi's pass is across the 6-yard box, essentially, the large small parallelogram. But it's just a bit in front of him. Like, it's just half a foot wrong. And instead of being able to just palm it to the net,
Got to catch it.
He has a decision to make to either bend down and catch it, which would mean having to bounce it because there's a defender coming over across, one of the O'Sheas, I think, and that would have been just sticking in the back of the net. But he doesn't do that. He reaches out with his left foot. Obviously, he is left-footed, but his left foot is going the wrong way, and it's like it's
agonising.
Slow motion, but like a bullet wide past, just like the umpire nearly has to duck. An open goal. But the end of literally the greatest move you're ever going to see, where it's like, wow, look at this, the glorious sunshine. It's Dublin versus Kerry. His entire career is made in that moment. Like afterwards, he dines out. He's at every road show that we've ever done, telling the story of the goal, like Laurie Sanchez or Norman Whiteside's.
Or Owen Mulligan. It's your Owen Mulligan moment. It would have been iconic.
As good as Owen Mulligan's goal, but like with teammates involved, like in a way, and so much distance made and so much pace. But you're just like, oh Jesus.
Look at lads. What I don't understand is when that ball came across the square from Dessie Farrell, why didn't Colin Moran just stop it with his right foot, do a little drag back like David Clifford, move it onto his left foot and curl it into the bottom corner? It just doesn't make sense. He just throws a lazy left foot at it.
Dessie screws him over with the pass completely, I think. I think it's good that you mentioned that. But to make matters worse in this scenario, the camera then pans to the stands. And we've got our great leader, Bertie Ahern, with his head in his hands, and he's like, oh no, Colin Moran. Oh no, not Colin Moran. And what is the commentary line, Ger, at that moment?
The commentary line is, I hope Bertie made some money in the Galway races.
It's at this moment then that we start to really hear the volume pick up, not from the crowd, but from Tommy Carr and Paddy, and you can really hear Paddy through the 50,000 voices in the stadium. Just everybody's getting so much angry. This amazing event has just happened where surely you could never miss a worse opportunity than that. But the thing is, you absolutely could. Dublin only went and did it. Tommy, I'm not sure, do you want to take this one up? The Dessie Farrell miss, which is as shocking, if not more shocking than the Colin Moran miss.
Yeah, so it's a couple of minutes later. You know, Dublin had scored 3 points by this stage. I think Kerry were 1-4 up. We just got our Jim Gavin screen grab, so anyone watching back will go, oh, right, he's sitting there on the bench looking very forlornly on.
Shaved head.
Yeah. So by the time this happens, and this is 3 shots in a row. You know, Seamus Moynihan at this stage is playing outrageously well. He's like a wild goat fielding ball and driving out the field. We've already had a couple of glimpses of the midfield battle where Darragh O'Shea has fielded some brilliant balls and Darren Holman and Kieran Whelan are starting to come into the game. And the sequence of events is just mental. Kieran Whelan drives through, takes a brilliant shot, comes back off the post, falls to Declan Darcy, whose shot then is blocked and spins towards goal. Dessie Farrell gathers it. Dessie Farrell in the slow motion replay afterwards does so well. He anticipates where the ball is going. Reminds me a little bit of Ollie Murphy. Maybe Dessie Farrell was a kind of Dublin version of Ollie Murphy. Is that what he was back in the 90s?
No.
Anyways, he gathers the ball and kind of gets by the keeper, off balance, shoots from 5 yards out.
To an open goal.
Smashes the crossbar. Like, Dublin's shooting efficiency, lads, the weekend was 85%. Sure, Colm Costello hit the post. Sure, you know, they had one wide, I think. I think their cornerback, Davy Byrne, took a mark and put it wide. Oof. That was 23 out of 27. By this stage, it's 3 out of 15 shots. Like, it's absolutely brutal. Like, it's just shocking. And it's like, but the thing is, the open goal isn't the problem. Dessie Farrell smashing the ball off the crossbar, off balance from 5 yards out, and all the Dubs around them feeling like they're never going to get a score in this game isn't the problem. Colin Moran missing pretty much an open goal with a attempt on a half volley that you might have seen in the World Cup the following year wasn't the issue. It was the shots from 45 yards and 50 yards. It was Colin Moran missing a free from 30 yards out right in the middle of the goals. They just couldn't get their act together. But maybe you're right. Maybe it was the absolute utter adrenaline because they had been playing so well up to this point.
It's amazing as well when Dessie Farrell misses that. He just drops to his knees straight away. He just can't believe it's after happening. And then
the head in the hands. That makes the whole thing because the miss happens so quickly that you're like, hang on, what happened there? It's off the crossbar. But it's actually, it's his massive reaction to it going, I can't believe I just missed an open goal from 2 yards. I think it's 2, by the way.
Yeah.
I think 5
Yeah,
is being
probably is 2.
5 is being generous there. That it's like, how could you? Timo Werner would have struggled to hit the crossbar from there. And I think because he falls to the ground like he's been shot, like a golfer who misses a putt to win the Masters. That was the reaction is so wired and explosive that you're like, something amazing was just happened there. I just need to go back and look at that again. And indeed it was fairly amazing.
I love the commentary around this as well. Tony Davis is like, how in the name of God did he miss? And then Ger Canning says, let's not bring the Lord into this. And I'm not sure if he's joking or not. Like, this is 2001, our RTE still the national bastions against blasphemy. Like, maybe he is joking, but it doesn't really sound like he is. Like, it's just Canning and Davis. What a combo.
Tony Davis is also silent for about a minute and a half afterwards, like stunned into absolute silence. Most co-coms at that stage are like elbowing the commentator. Let me tell you exactly what just happened here. But he's like, I can't explain this. It's chaos.
I think Davis is like, I don't know, either dropped his mic for the whole thing and is like fist bumping throughout the whole thing because you just don't hear him throughout the majority of like the really important moments in the game. Like,
for some reason, Tony Davis makes sense to me being on co-coms back then. Was he always on co-coms? Was he the voice of Gaelic football around those years? Or did he appear on that Gaelic game, PlayStation game?
I think. Oh, I don't know. I didn't have it.
I don't know.
I think like it's quite new. That was one of the things that cropped up from the games that we were doing in the 90s, that there was no co-com for most of them. Like, it's a very new phenomenon, and so therefore the commentators, I presume, are still like, this is never going to last. What are they doing here? Should be one voice calling this? We all know that's the way things...
Let's just speed this up a little bit because we're almost at the end of the first half. You mentioned there Dublin's horrific shot accuracy. Like, there is a moment after that where Declan Darcy... he should be scoring. He could score from double the distance usually, and from the distance he lets an effort into the arms of Declan O'Keefe. This is the sort of thing we're seeing from Dublin, and it is not hyperbole to suggest that the shooting performance from Dublin in the first half is astonishing. Like
18 shots, 3 scores.
It's worth reiterating.
16% shooting accuracy.
Like that is the forgotten storyline of this game, 2001. The inefficiency from the Dublin forwards, which isn't like a lack of intuition or expertise when it comes to the coaching. It is just this crumbling in certain moments, or it's just freak incidents. And half-time anyway, Kerry get in 5 points up. After half-time, Kerry actually continue. I mean, Johnny Crowley starts to lead the way here. It's 110 to 5 points at one point in the second half. It's an 8-point lead. The scores change every so often after that, but an 8-point lead is where we get to. And I know you want to talk about Johnny Crowley, Ger, because this guy this season was a phenomenon.
Absolutely sensational. Like, completely flawless in the entire game up until stoppage time at the end of the match. Like, unmarkable. And Tony Davis obviously clearly loves him because he's like, that was just brute strength at one point. He's got it all. He's the best forward in the country at the moment. And obviously he was keeping Morris Fitz out of the team, like, really cute. There's like there's a blatant dive in the first half that is like, wouldn't have been out of place in the World Cup, as they would tend to say if somebody ever scores a good penalty. Kerry were good at the L dives. Owen, I always thought this was a more recent cynical phenomenon, but it turns out they were like the old theatrical arms up and a nice little tug of the jersey here and there. But notwithstanding that, he could kick off both points. He's your Ollie Murphy. He's your Ollie Murphy if you're looking for a comparison here. But I would say actually even better than Ollie Murphy.
Yeah, like, I mean, it was just the archetype of corner forwards that Kerry produced. Johnny Crowley fit that. Mike Frank Russell fit that. Diminutive, fast. And maybe a little bit of cuteness there as well. It's interesting that you bring up the diving. I think that brings us on nicely to one of the most memorable moments from the game, which is Johnny Crowley. It looked like he was going to burn his man at one point, and then all of a sudden there's a coming together of legs, and on first look it looks as if he's been taken out of it. On second look it looks like Johnny Crowley makes the most of it. But it is at this moment that Tommy Carr completely loses his head. As I say, we could hear him over 50,000 people. This is him being told to go away. I think we've got another shot here of Tommy Carr going up to Curley, the referee. We'll get this in just a sec. There he is, that close to the referee, screaming in his face. He burst his own eardrum, I would suspect, Tommy Carr.
That's a matter of inches, like less than 6 inches.
Oh, like it's just, and what you've got is this this group of Dublin players who are pretty old school and are hard men, they're actually rushing towards their manager to
Johnny
say,
McGee.
calm down. Yeah, Johnny McGee's like, calm down, Tom. Like, I mean,
pushing him away twice. He goes back again after he's gone essentially to butt heads. Like, imagine if he'd headbutted him. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility.
The Garda, the superintendent of the Garda.
But then the linesman comes over and he just gets fecked out of it.
Yeah, the linesman, a car pushes the linesman then. That's the forgotten thing. And like, he does get a ban for the second game as well, which is the thing. Like, that's how bad it was. In 2001...
I wasn't sure.
He was so angry that they actually gave him a ban in 2001.
Was it a one-game ban?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Obviously, they only had one more game in that championship. But Johnny Crowley sparks that. Like, it's... Kerry are just constantly kicking the ball in long at this point. There's one hilarious moment where Donald Daly gets the ball in midfield and he turns around and he just hand passes it back to, I don't know, is it Mike McCarthy or McCarroll or somebody who was standing behind him. And you can hear Paddy O'Shea eviscerate him. I think you can actually hear his arms flailing. And it's just at that moment you think to yourself, what would Paddy have thought over the last 7 or 8 years about the lateral hand passing in GAA? I'd say he would be spinning in his grave to think about what has actually been happening with lateral hand passing recently. Just one small hand pass in the wrong direction, he lost the plot completely with Donald Daly. Let the ball in long, I don't care if it's aimless, just keep kicking the ball. And I guess it was working to a certain point.
But it was a brilliant hand pass. If you go back and watch it, like the hand pass, they win a free off it. Like, it was the right thing to do. It was a recycle of possession, but not for him. So Tommy Carr got a one-match ban for that, which was subsequently extended to a 12-week ban, or 24-week ban. Sorry.
The long passing that you're talking about, obviously with the advanced mark that's been brought in, we're seeing a wee bit more of long kicking at the minute. Whether or not the advanced mark is the right thing to do, actually on that there could have been about 9 bloody marks in that game, and it would have been a disaster because none of them would have gone over the bar. But the long kicking, it's very noticeable in the Meath Kerry game when we come to it as well. Meath did the exact same thing. They were bombing ball after ball in on top of Graham Gardy and Ollie Murphy. And Seamus Moynihan kept coming out with the ball. I think there was 7 or 8 in the first half of that Meath Kerry game. And it's the same here. It's just a bit mad. And like, obviously the quality of the individual players were much better. But like, the standard of the game is low level intermediate football. Like, the standard of the football being played. No, it's not. It's the decision making. It's the kicking, the wild kicking with like your body open. A simple ball down the line, the body open, and it's going out over the sideline. It's very jarring to watch it. It's madness.
Yeah, no, you are right in fairness. But I genuinely do think there is just like a breakdown in everybody's motor skills because everybody is so angry during this. Like when Kieran Whelan kicks a massive point to bring Dublin back into it late in the second half. Like, he miscontrols one solo by about 10 metres. Like, he doesn't go into his chest. It's like way in front of him. Like, people have just broken down. Their skills have deserted them in this like complete cauldron of emotion that is Semple Stadium on the day. It's really interesting. Like, just on Moynihan that you mentioned him there, he was good against Meath, probably the only good Kerry player against Meath that day. But I think after watching games like this, you have to appreciate that he was just on a higher plane than everybody else in that Kerry team. And like, maybe with the exception of Maurice Fitzgerald, who we'll get to in a while. But I think there's a case to be made that post the golden era, post the Mick O'Dwyer years, Seamus Moynihan is Kerry's greatest ever player. Like, the consistency, the ability for him to read the ball was like nothing I've ever seen anyway. And there was just always these lines in commentary where it's like, oh, a miscontrolled pass from the opposition into the arms of Seamus Moynihan, which we don't actually get to appreciate. Every time a ball is miscontrolled, all of a sudden Moynihan's on the end of it. He could see the future, this man. And like, Ger, I think you were making a point last night that this is a man who maybe is a little bit before his time, that he could actually have been even better in a proper system.
Well, imagine if you had him now in any of the great inter-county teams that currently exist. Say he played in that Dublin team, and you could pick him at 3, you could pick him at 6, but he'd be scoring regularly because he'd be free to go forward. He'd also be that sweeper at the back because, you know, the Man United debate about whether or not Fred and McTominay can do the role of one man. Seamus Moynihan could be that player who would also be getting forward to score goals, I think, in these teams, to be the extra man, fisting it in at the far post, having made runs. Like, you know, if you stuck him in the Kerry team under Eamon Fitzmaurice, when they would have had a system that would have played to his strengths as well. Whereas here, it's like, we've got nobody who can play full back anymore. You need to go back there and you need to essentially be my coach on the field, my eyes and ears, and be the physical enforcer, and you need to win every high ball that comes in too. And occasionally, we'd like you to go forward, but not too far forward. There were definitely times when he was like making that run that I think would have opened up the game, and he stopped because he knew they didn't have the defensive structure. They definitely had the defenders. That Kerry defence was brilliant. Like as individuals, you know, Tom Sullivan is there, Tomas is there. Kirby comes off the bench. There's just
Morris and Moynihan. Yeah, like they're all all-stars. And yeah, you're right. There was just probably a complete lack of system. And Moynihan is the shepherd of the team, and
he never gives it away.
No,
he never gives the ball away.
Always did the right thing. We should move on to the Dublin comeback, and the Dublin comeback is as a result of Vinnie Murphy coming into proceedings. It is a massive substitution. Vinnie Murphy looks like the mountain during this game.
He does.
Like he is an absolute monster. We can see him challenging Tom Sullivan here immediately as he comes on, and kind of nails him straight away. Tom Sullivan, who's not exactly the weakest man in the world, gets put in his place immediately by Vinnie Murphy, and he scores his goal.
In the face. Like, it's not just a shoulder, like he properly pokes him in the face after Tom Sullivan and himself give each other a shoulder too. Yeah, so the crowd is, going wild and roaring as Vinny comes on and nails Tom a shoulder. O'Sullivan comes back and hits him a shoulder. Like, all right, fair play, Tom. Next thing, Vinny just goes.
Yeah, like it's crazy how much of this game was based on aimless kicking. Vinnie Murphy looking like the most strong, brutish man of the lot, and yet he produced, other than Maurice Fitzgerald, the moment of greatest subtlety throughout the 70 minutes. His little side foot finish into the back of the net to bring Dublin right back into proceedings after he came off the bench. And this is against his beloved Kerry, Gerard. This is Vinnie Murphy and Kerry had gone back a long way at this point. This was a little bit of a private story for him too.
So Vinnie Murphy was on the Dublin team, or thereabouts, was a sub on the team that won the All-Ireland in 95, and he was just cresting to his peak in 96, 97. Mickey Whelan came in and told them all that they were one of the worst teams ever to win an All-Ireland, and that they were going to do it better this time, and they were going to do it with a bit of flair. So I told them all, take your medals and put them in the bin. That's essentially what happened. I was like, I didn't know this. This is all in a piece that Vinnie Murphy did. And so he's at a loose end thinking, geez, what am I going to do with my life? And ends up moving to Kerry, plays football for Cairns Rallies for 3 years, but lines out for the Kerry Hurlers because there's a dispute between the Kerry hurling clubs and the county board, and somebody says, here, listen, can you come down and play for us? Scores 1-3 in a pre-season match against Cork and never pulls on the jersey again because he realises that from a personal perspective, he feels like he's cheapened the Kerry jersey and cheapened the Dublin jersey, and in retrospect, it was a mistake. So I know somewhere in my head I've seen a picture of him, but I couldn't find it last night on the internet to find Vinnie Murphy in a Kerry jersey. And then he moves back up to Dublin, plays good club football. Tommy Carr invites him back in to play the role of super sub at 30-31, and lo and behold, he plays the role perfectly.
Yeah, Will has been in touch to say he travelled with us as a 17-year-old. It was immense, one of my best ever away trips. I often thought if Dublin had won that, we would have won more in the noughties. 2 awesome midfields on show that day. Vinnie Murphy had been playing his club football down in Kerry for a good while beforehand, and I think he talks about William Kirby actually, and knowing him through his time intra-league playing with Cairns Rallies. It's something I had no idea of, that story of him playing for Kerry hurling, until he mentioned it there. But he obviously found it within himself that he had a blue heart, and that was it. He was going to go back and play for Dublin. And his goal and the Holman goal, which puts Dublin in front, this brilliant fisted effort into the back of the net, those should have been the moments, as you say, Gerard, the future roadshow moments, that Dublin finally beat Kerry, their first meeting in 16 years, and Dublin win on this occasion. Like that was the comeback complete. If it wasn't for Maurice Fitzgerald, it would have happened, and you wonder what might have happened next had they actually hung on in that situation. As Will said there, they often thought that was their moment in the early noughties.
So I don't think it is, because when you realise that what else is happening on Gaelic football fields around the country that summer is that these two teams are being left behind quite significantly by first Meath and then subsequently by Galway.
Well, then, the following years, Armagh are obviously tweaking things, and Tyrone are coming.
Yeah, there's a revolution happening, and these two teams are still locked in the style that was the style of the 80s and the style of the 90s. And the style of the 90s hadn't been successful really for either of them until 97, obviously. But one last thing before we get to the Maurice Fitz is, like, all game, it did not look like there was significant weather at all. But at one moment, about 10 minutes ago, it's like Dublin playing against the breeze in this second half. It made I made no accommodation for it whatsoever until that moment where Maurice Fitz gets the ball. And it's like the wind is whistling across his jersey, and the jerseys are all too big. That's the other thing. The jerseys all make them look like they're intermediate players. That and the fact
Jason Sherlock. Joe's jersey is amazing.
Well, when they take the jerseys off, you realise that some of them do not have the same strength and conditioning approach as today's athletes do as well. It's fair to say that there was a lack of definition that, would characterise me after lockdown. That's I was like, that's certainly.
When you go back to Vinnie Murphy's goal, Eoin, obviously Vinnie comes on and as we said, the crowd get G'd up. Like, Kerry are winning by 7 points at that stage.
The last
10
cause.
minutes. There's 9 minutes to go. It's absolutely incredible. Like, it's not even that their game management is poor. They barely get a hand on the ball. And I actually think, you mentioned Vinnie Murphy's goal, you mentioned Darren Holman's goal. The Kieran Whelan, Darragh O'Shea battle in this was fascinating throughout. And Whelan, I think Darragh O'Shea, it's actually hard to say Whelan came on top, but Whelan was so important to that Dublin comeback. He scores a brilliant point on the right. He's a drive and run where he wins a free. That was actually one of my favourite things about that game. And then obviously at the very, very, very end, Darragh makes that monstrous fetch on Wayne McCarthy. Wayne McCarthy shot there. There's the image there. Wayne McCarthy, poor Wayne, had the chance to win the game. But one of the most jarring things that came with this was Vinnie Murphy's first touch, pretty much, is that lovely deft finish into the goal. Maurice Fitzgerald's first touch was that sideline, that unbelievable sideline. I think that was the first touch of the ball. Wayne McCarthy had 4 frees and he just didn't strike them properly. Just
into
didn't
the
get
wind
them
as
off
well.
the ground.
And
the wind was against him.
It was never gonna get there. So Maurice Fitz comes off the bench, gets welcomed by a bunch of Dublin players in a pretty aggressive way. Johnny McGee, speaking about this years afterwards, said that the welcoming committee was probably the worst thing we did to welcome Maurice the way we did. Probably it was a bit naive on the part of a few of us. We were very young. The worst thing to do was to rile up Maurice Fitz coming in off the bench. Now, it wasn't just the players, of course, who were riling up Maurice Fitz. Once Davy Byrne kicks that ball out over the sideline, which, again, possibly should not have happened if they just won their own kick out. Maurice Fitz never would have got the ball in his hands. But anyway, it does go out over the line. Maurice Fitz gets the ball, the wind is blowing, and Tommy Carr standing beside him and edges closer and closer and closer to him, shouting at him, really, as Maurice Fitz goes to actually take the sideline. And we all know what happened, the beautiful arc from left to right and straight over the bar. To be honest with you, I don't believe anybody who says that they knew he was going to nail it. I think it's always a bit of a risk when a player's just come off the bench and it's his first kick. But such was his track record, such was what he'd shown in 1997. But still, 4 years previous, that he was going to nail this. And there's no better person you'd rather have
over the black spot.
Hand.
It literally ends
over the black spot.
Over the black spot. From like, and it's just this amazing golf shot that we take for granted. I think probably because we've seen it so much. But just go back and watch it again and see the wind whistling in the jersey. See the linesman stand right beside him, and the flag tilted, and everything is like there are a load of people around him, and he is completely immune to it. It's one of those moments where there is a master craftsman at work who nothing you say or do is going to be able to upset him or derange him from what he knows he needs to do, and that is he's in his backfield, kicking this ball that he's kicked a million times, pretending that he's Mick O'Connell in a big match in the 1950s to win All-Ireland in Croke Park. That's what's going on in his head. There's something else going on that is not, I'm in Thurles, look at this, oh, there's Tommy Carr, it's really windy. It's like...
Yeah, it's a serenity, and the way he jogs away afterwards as well is not necessarily the sight of a man who's just levelled the game in incredible circumstances. Like, compare that to even a lot of his teammates, the fist pumping, and especially the Dubs, who are like this massive emotional thing. Maurice Fitz shows up, gets the ball, puts it over the bar, gets on with his day. And maybe there's something about the Mick O'Connell temperament within that as well, since you're making that comparison.
I'd love to know if Maurice was thinking anything at that moment. Was there just serenity in his head as he picked up that ball, as the wind was whistling by him? It's even the kicking technique, Ger, as you said. I actually really liked Darragh O'Caneda's style of striking a free. Darragh O'Caneda was very good. Mike Frank Russell, like Johnny Crowley, as you said, he had that wide just before Davy Byrne put the ball out for the sideline. But like that Kerry full forward line, they were really stylish footballers. And yeah, that Morris strike, he didn't just hoof it. It just floated so perfectly over the bar.
Well, we get to that moment that you've already brought us through, Tommy, the catch from Darragh O'Shea, Wayne McCarthy letting it go short, and it is literally game over after that. You can hear a little bit of Paddy O'Shea now. He was speaking to Darragh Maloney, on RT. I was going to say Darragh O'Shea in the immediate aftermath of the game.
Paddy O'Shea, what's your reaction after that? Your head must be spinning.
Well, absolutely delighted that we salvaged the draw in the end. I thought the game was gone for us there for a while. Luckily enough, when Dublin did get the goal, that we did have a few minutes left to pick off the last point, So from our point of view, I suppose, the game was there for us for long periods, but we always knew that Dublin were going to come at us. And, Dublin had to play for some period, and they played at the critical period as far as we were concerned towards the closing stage of the game.
Were you surprised it was so easy for you for so long?
Well, okay, it was that they showed great resilience and they showed great appetite, and they kept plugging in there, and they kept, every time that we scored, they kept attacking back to score. But from our point of view, we're delighted to get the draw. We're still in the championship, and that's the main thing.
That kick at the end for Morris?
Great kick. He's very good at that. He's the right man at the right place. We introduced Morris in that period of the game, and luckily for us that we have that expertise in our ranks. It was a great score.
Paddy, thanks for your time. Thank you.
The sound there is one of the outstanding things. Maybe like noise-cancelling microphones hadn't quite come along in 2001, but I think really there was this real sense of joy from everyone, really. The Dublin players, the way they were applauding. We've got images that we can roll through here in terms of the aftermath of the game. We may as well just roll through them and just have a look at some of the scenes that we saw. We've got Kieran Whelan, we've got Tom Carr. It's just this emotional sort of applauding the Killiney end that we've got. There we have Kieran Whelan swapping a shirt and then applauding the Killiney end. We'll get to the most jarring in just a moment, but I just find it so weird that we have Declan Darcy and Jim Cavan and Jason Sherlock in this team, and this sort of stuff is going on, like Tom Carr with the two fists pumped up to the crowd, the massive emotional fist pumping after every score. It is just so removed from the Dublin team that Sherlock and Darcy and Jim Cavan were so deeply involved with taking to the next level. That emotion is something that they actually completely took out of the Dubs at certain points. There's a fan with Tom Carr in the aftermath of the game.
That's John Bailey, the county board chairman.
My apologies.
When you said there's a fan, I was thinking
it is John Bailey, sorry. It is, my apologies. I just went, I did Robbie Keane, unidentified fan there. I had one eye on it. Apologies. The secret man of the match, it's not Maurice Fitz, even though he's who everybody remembers because he kicked the ball once. I would give it to either Seamus Moynihan, Johnny Crowley, or Darragh O'Shea, to be quite honest with you. I thought he was magnificent. Vinnie Murphy and Desi, I thought, were decent as well, especially Vinnie when he came on.
Is secret man of the match supposed to be somebody who wasn't man of the match but actually deserved it? So I would...
Well, everybody's not who's not Maurice Fitzgerald, I think, in this case, can be made as secret man of the match.
I would say Darren Homan was actually the better midfielder on display for the Dubs, I thought. More effective over the course of the whole game. There was a few runs where Kieran Whelan pushed a couple of the Kerry defenders, but ultimately I would say Darragh O'Shea was the dominant midfielder in that battle over the course of the game. But I would say Homan actually was influential, agricultural in moments, and I think he was part of that welcoming committee for Maurice Fitz as well.
Yeah, it was Patter Andrews, Darren Holman and Johnny McGee who were the welcoming committee. And actually, I had Holman down, I had Crowley down and Holman down for secret man of the match, but I give it to Holman for that gene up to the crowd after his goal. It's the 69th minute.
Yeah,
you're only winning by a point.
Yeah,
I know.
It's some of the trending stuff. Then we've kind of got to already. Like you mentioned the baggy jerseys, Tommy. You mentioned them. Buzz cuts were very much trending around this point. What's your man's name? Johnny Unitas in The Simpsons, when Abe Simpson's now there's a haircut I could set my watch to. All of the Dubs look like Johnny Unitas throughout this. A lot of the Kerry players do as well. They've all just taken a razor straight to it the day before a game. That was what a championship haircut was.
Legendary American footballer Johnny Unitas.
2001. I don't know Johnny Unitas in real life. I know him through The Simpsons.
Okay,
that is it. We've got the gloves. The gloves were very much trending.
What was the story with those Kerry gloves? What were they? I've never seen them before or since.
Are they Masita? Are they like the Masita ones, the yellow and black ones?
I don't know.
Mikasa.
Sorry. Masita. What's Masita?
I don't know if they were, to be honest, but I've seen those green gloves. Darragh O'Shea pretty much wore them for the duration of his career.
Right. They were kind of big and thick. They looked like bog gloves, but it definitely worked. I thought the handling was excellent, considering that there was a shower of rain in the middle of it as well. I thought the football was much higher quality than I might have anticipated. I'm the opposite to you, Tommy. I think that I really enjoyed that part of it. I understand the point you're making about the technical proficiency of it.
I enjoyed it entertainment-wise. Yeah, entertainment-wise I enjoyed it, but it was just jarring, I suppose.
We have a minute left.
Yeah, just to basically take you very quickly then through what happened next. The replay, Johnny Crowley scores 2-2 in the replay. Kerry able to cope with the sending off of Tomas O'Shea, as we've already mentioned. He challenges Collingwood and gets a straight red for it. Kerry again in control for a lot of the match. 2 late Dublin goal chances in that replay as well cost them. Kerry win by 3 points. As we all know though, later that season, Kerry get absolutely hockeyed by Meath, but eventually get back to win in All-Ireland 3 years later. It's still a bit of a gap before they do it. Dublin, as we all know, had to wait another 10 years and a whole culture change and a whole other slew of humbling defeats.
That's the end of Tommy Carr.
That is the end of Tommy Carr. And it is part of the chaos of the day that we have 2 great counties well before their 21st century peaks. Kerry kind of in between, Dublin well before the 21st century peaks. It was a game that was maybe low in quality at times, but it was brilliant and memorable and exciting, and it was definitely a good reason to bring back the Classic Game Club.
And GA now put it on YouTube, so check it out there in full glorious Technicolor and top quality as well. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Give me the confidence to tackle the day ahead. That is this week's edition of the Classic Game Club. By way of preview of Dublin against Kerry in Thurles this weekend. OTB AM, as I said, live in association with Gillette. We'll see it tomorrow morning at 7:30. Tune in to Off the Ball this evening on the OTB Sports app from 7. Good luck.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.